I'm just gonna record anyway. So let's see what happens. We might have to start this all over again, but sure. So why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Uh, hello. Hello. Welcome to Our Place, Our Spot podcast. This is CY98.
And I'm Fox, aka Riora.
And I'm Electronic Star. Or Star.
Yeah, so to get started, we are going to start with our question of the week, which was last time, what is your favorite Clerith-coded fictional couple? For example, that could be Anakin and Padme from Star Wars. That could be Meg and Hercules from Disney's Hercules. It could be a lot of different ones. So, CY, why don't you start answering the question?
All right. Well, you actually kind of gave away my answer in one of your examples.
It's okay. You can answer why you think that they are.
Yeah. It's Anakin and Padme. Just the tragedy behind it, I found really drew a lot of parallels between the tragedies of Cloud and Aerith, of how they are torn apart, and especially in Rebirth, since we have a lot of moments with Cloud that kind of parallel Anakin Vader in Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just also the, and just the way they evoke both, the classic, Shakespearean tragedy tropes just really speaks to me.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to name any tropes in particular?
Well, obviously, like the star-crossed lovers and the chance meeting
Mm-hmm.
between them, and also, of course, the flower field or an Anakin and Padme meadow imagery.
Mm-hmm.
Like that scene in Attack of the Clones.
Mm-hmm. Also, hey Andreas, right now we were answering the question, "What is your favorite Clerith-coded couple?" And CY is
I
currently
will.
explaining what his answer was, which was Padme and Anakin.
Oh, that's a good choice.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I really felt all of that remind me of it, and I even did a commission a while back. I think I actually shared it in one of the servers here with you,
Mm-hmm.
where I had Cloud and Aerith in Anakin and Padme's outfits.
Okay, yeah.
I've kind of always viewed them as that, I actually it actually went so far to an extent that I predicted some Anakin type moments for Cloud in Rebirth before we saw any of the trailers even.
Mm-hmm.
Like
the bridge scene, right?
I'm talking about the bridge scene, outside the temple.
Mm-hmm.
About that, and also stuff like that. I kind of predicted stuff like that because of how remake ended, with the whole "let us defy destiny together." That just gave me massive Anakin Palpatine vibes.
Mm-hmm.
For Cloud and Sephiroth.
Yeah. How do you stop the ones you love from dying? Is there a way to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi.
Yeah, fuck the Jedi. But yeah, so Star, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. I have two couples. First one is obvious, Squall and Renoir.
Mm-hmm.
It's obvious, I think.
Yeah, I know. I totally see it.
The magical girl, yeah. The other couple is from either Cardcaptor Sakura or Tsubasa, Shaoran and Sakura. These two.
Okay.
They're pretty coded for, I think. because yeah, Shaoran is so shy sometimes, and he's blushing, and he's so cute. And Sakura is a really outgoing girl, and yeah, they just remind me of Claire.
Yeah,
And in
unfortunately,
Tsubasa,
I'm not really
they
familiar
are
with those
hmm.
pieces of media. But yeah, go on. Sorry.
And in Tsubasa,
Mm-hmm.
Sakura loses her memories, and Shaoran remembers them everything still, and he can't be close to her because she doesn't know him. That's so bittersweet, and yeah, oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. It's
Um.
also reminding me very much of Claris. So
Yeah.
when Cloud is constantly losing Eris, and he's searching for her in every game we saw him. Oh, so bittersweet.
Yeah. They're cutie pies for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Andreas, would you like to answer?
Hmm. Um, a couple that reminds me of Clerith.
Mm-hmm.
Or do they have to be official, or can they be even like fanon?
I'm gonna go with fandom. I don't think it matters.
Okay. Uh, I don't. They don't. Not that they don't relate, but just the what's it called? I would say that the situation is very different and their motivations are different, but they still kind of remind me of it. Um, I used to be in the Attack on Titan fandom, and
Mm.
uh, I wasn't really a shipper back then, but I did grow to love shipping after Clerith.
Mm-hmm.
But something I was keen towards to there in regards to anything besides the plot, there was this fanship between the main character Aaron and uh, another character called named Historia, and uh, I really liked their dynamic. And without getting into a lot of spoilers, the situation's a bit different because Aaron is basically an evil person for the right reasons. Well, that's subjective, but at least he thinks he is, and Historia is willing to carry on that burden. But that reminds me, even though I won't say that Cloud is an evil person, that whole carrying on the burden thing, it reminds me a lot of Clerith because of how Aerith and Cloud each take on each other's burdens, which is something I really find to be really wholesome and cute. So yeah, that's my reasoning.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Anything else before I answer?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
So my
No.
answer would probably be specifically Clark and Lois from Smallville because I feel like there are just so many parallels just in terms of Clark's romance with Lois. Lois being a year or two older than Clark. She's more down to earth. She's seen more of the world. She's more aware of it. She kind of has like this tomboyish wisdom to her that I think Aerith has, but a lot of it gets confused with being more feminine wisdom because of the way Aerith dresses. And there's just kind of like this underlying tension, sexual, romantic, whatever you want to call it, tension between Clark and Lois, where they kind of like rib each other, and that's very similar to Cloud and Aerith in the rooftop scene, as well as the OG version of that, as well as remake. And yeah, and then Tifa was Cloud's first crush, whereas in Smallville there was Lana before there was Lois, and Clark kind of needed to go through that before being the man and coming into his own before fully pursuing a relationship with Lois. And yeah, That's basically my answer. I hope it makes sense. Cause
Yeah, it's nice.
yeah,
Yeah, I get it.
yeah. And so the next piece of thing that needs to be answered is that my husband, aka One Man Jack, in our section asked, which do you think Final Fantasy VII closely aligns with, JRPG dev style or Western RPG dev style, and how does that change the shipping dynamic, if at all? So if anyone wants to answer that
Good
first, they can
question.
go ahead. I have my own thoughts on it as well. I think that was just a very interesting question to ask.
Mm, I'm gonna think about it a little.
Okay, so
Uh,
I think the way
I,
to
I'm honestly going to need to think on it as well because I'm not entirely familiar with what that means of like the different styles.
yeah, so I think the way to break down the Japanese versus Western RPG style is to kind of start with the history of RPGs, which I think more or less did originate in the Japanese style, which was to have the silent, kind of blank personality of a protagonist. Like you have like early Legend of Zelda games, you have Mario, you have all of those people where the protagonist doesn't have much of a personality, so you kind of have to fill in the blanks. And this is true for a lot of the early Final
Mhm.
Fantasy games as well, where you just have the strong silent protagonist type and you're
Right.
left to
Right.
just fill
Right.
in
It
with
was
all the
only with
characteristics, right? It's like a choose your own adventure kind of.
Yeah, exactly. It was only
Yeah.
with Final Fantasy IV that they started to make it more plot and character personality related with, Cecil, Rosa, and Kane.
Yeah, whereas I think the
Mhm.
Western style is just like you already have a plot and a story for the main characters and their friends kind of already filled in. So you are it one is just like you're kind of simulating yourself into the story via the protagonist on I think the Japanese side, and then the Western side is more like you are just a character and you're supposed to connect with this character. However, like CY mentioned, there was a shift from Final Fantasy 4 and beyond, and I think where Final Fantasy VII fits into that is that Cloud does start off as the strong, silent protagonist, where he's also just kind of cold and very, I guess, impolite to the character. He's not the friendly type. He does care when it's convenient for him, but he's mostly just prattling on about wanting his payment for the jobs for like the first hour or so of the original game.
Mhm.
And then
Right.
later on, you find like there's this deep, rich history, and you find out that all of that is a facade to guard himself and to cope, right? And the real person projecting on him within the bounds of the story is actually Genova, and it's also impartial due to the coping mechanism of wanting to keep everyone else at bay and tell himself that he is superior because he was bullied as a child, and that really continues to affect him into adulthood. And then you have the Genova portion, who is puppeteering a lot of his actions or misactions, I should say, and confusing a lot of his
Mhm.
memories and jumbling them up. So I think Final Fantasy VII, as far as Cloud as a protagonist is concerned, is a really good marriage of the Japanese and Western expectation of what a role playing game is, and going forward beyond that, um, you saw like a shift in the Japanese area start to become a little more westernized to kind of appeal to that broader audience. And more we see, especially I think in remake, Cloud does have a very intricate background, even if he doesn't quite remember it. So, do y'all
I
want to
totally
answer
agree.
that portion of the question, or?
I 100% agree with you. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's totally logical. I'd also would lean more towards Western because of the not so blank characters in this sense. Yeah,
Yeah, no, for
but
sure.
yeah, in the beginning he is a
Yeah,
character you can self-insert, and then as the story progresses, he is his own character. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that as well. Final Fantasy VII, despite it technically being made by Japanese developers, I feel definitely, took a more Western approach to its characters and storytelling and game design, which I find especially interesting that that's becoming more of the norm for Japanese developers now.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, even in the like for example, you see this a pretty good recent example of this is in like the new Legend of Zelda games, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. Like, yes, Link is still silent, but they've made an active effort to, like give more background to the character of, each iteration of him.
Mm-hmm.
And also giving more of and also making it more clear of, who his friends are and who the enemies are. Like
Yeah,
it
you get a
basically
better
leaves
sense of his
us.
personality.
Right, exactly. And I find that, and that's something, I find interesting that, they've continued doing that. Yeah, Japanese studios have been doing that in general. Like Mario, I think is probably the only one I can think of where they really haven't made that kind of shift. Like every other major Japanese franchise I can think of has, especially around the time when they made the shift to 3D, made the jump to a more personality driven and less room for the player to project their own ideas on. Look at the Sonic series, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Like each of the characters in those are incredibly distinct with their own traits, making it very hard for the player to project onto themselves. Whereas in the Genesis ones, you could project yourself onto them easily.
Yeah.
Whereas
Mhm.
whereas with Mario, it is still this day, you projecting yourself onto him.
Yeah, 100% agree
That's
for sure.
Yeah.
sorry for the tangent, but
No,
that's just
no, no.
something I find.
I'm cool with the conversation.
Mhm.
No, that's just something I found fascinating because of how, again, your husband phrased it as Japanese versus Western, and then here we are seeing that it's now become predominant in Japan as well.
Mm-hmm. Like, I definitely think there was a
Yeah,
lot of influence from Western culture, maybe.
Yeah,
Because I think
definitely.
the way the Western RPGs are starting to go is that it's a little bit backwards, where you start out with the character who has amnesia or something, or there is a question about themselves that's not quite answered, and then you slowly go through the story to get more deep into what they are like or what they were like. But Andreas, do you want to
uh,
answer that part of the question?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question again?
So it's a
I was paying
two-part
it.
question, but we're deconstructing the first part, which is what do you think the differences are between a Western RPG and a Japanese RPG?
So I would say that I grew up with a lot of Western RPGs more so than Japanese RPGs,
Mm-hmm.
but so like um so I would say the biggest difference between them is how they approach character writing, and what I mean by that is uh, I'll give an example. There's a very famous Western RPG, and it's the Witcher series, specifically The
Mhm.
Witcher 3.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they go about writing that is more down to earth. I would say a lot of Western RPGs, while some are like very fantasy based, like the Elder Scrolls, there's still this element of being down to earth, even with the different settings they take place in, whether it's fantasy, modern day. There's always some sort of ground to earthness. With Japanese RPGs, I feel they try to, which isn't a bad thing, but they try to like excel beyond grounding, and that's why there's that joke that every JRPG you kill God. Like you start off drinking beer
That's
and then you
true.
end up killing God himself. So it's like that joke mainly
So would
comes
you
from
say
the
the
fact that
situations and the characters in Western RPGs are more realistic?
I wouldn't say more realistic. I would just say they're more grounded. I wouldn't say they're more realistic.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with it.
I think I get what he means, because I don't think anyone would be saying that Mass Effect is realistic.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean
Yeah.
realistic in terms of just how the characters would react to something, whereas I think Japanese RPGs tend to be a
True.
little more like cartoonish and exaggerated.
Yeah. I'll give a
Yeah.
funny example about that in relation to Final Fantasy. I was playing the game remake with my sister. She wanted to play it a couple years after I played it. And so she was playing, and she knows something. I never noticed it before because I've been playing JRPGs and it just never really struck my mind. But at least in remake, they kind of do this better in Rebirth. But she's like, man, they make a lot of grunting sounds randomly, like just a lot of grunting sounds. I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, do you notice with every action, they're like, huh? Huh? Eh? Like they sound like Link. That's what she told me. They sound like Link from Zelda.
Mhm.
And so I'm like,
That's true.
I noticed that in the background, but I never really paid attention to it. But it's just like that kind of over exaggeratedness, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah.
before you answer that, Fox, I just want to say it's funny that you mentioned that your sister pointed that out, Andreas, because Cody Christian actually said in an interview that that was basically what his audition was for Cloud. For Cloud, he said the prompt he was given was act like you're striking down 5 men at once.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the second
And yeah,
part,
basically he then let out the loud shout from it.
yeah.
Yeah.
As one would for a JRPG, I think. I don't know. I don't really play a lot of the more Western ones, to be honest. I'm all about very very different um, styles. I guess I've grown up with the Japanese role playing games.
Yeah.
But the second
Yeah,
part
me
of the
too.
question is how we think that translate into the shipping dynamic, if we think it translates at all. So the way I
I would
interpret that question is that I think a lot of the cloties we have in the fandom are more Western, and the toxic ones prefer to project their own wants and desires onto Cloud or Tifa in terms of shipping. Like
Yeah.
they
Yes.
want to see themselves in that couple. With some of
Right.
the toxic cloties, they want to ship themselves onto Tifa because they imagine that they have the same body type as her and want to think of themselves as this very desirable, sexy person, which I don't think that they are in real life, but we'll get into that on another episode, I suppose. Um, Whereas they also want Cloud
Yeah,
to
no, the
think that
most
they
extreme will
are.
come later.
Yeah, they want Cloud to be this simp for Tifa because they are a simp for Tifa. Like I do think it depends on the male and female dynamic of where their shipping goggles are coming from, but it is not, they're being disingenuous with their shipping because I think they often misunderstand what the characters are and are fully projecting their own lives into these characters. Whereas I think Clerith genuinely accept Cloud for who he is and enjoy his character for who he is. and the same goes with Aerith. Like there's not really a lot of projection from the Clerith side of the shipping wars. It's just we accept these characters for what they are. We are able to make deep character analyses on all of them and ship them just genuinely without pressing too much of ourselves into their own mold, because they are Cloud and Aerith, and I think a lot of the rest of the cast are so distinct from each other and from ourselves. Like, it's not that we can't relate to them, but they are, at the end of the day, their own characters, and they were created very beautifully, I think, from the whole Final Fantasy VII development team.
Yeah.
Right.
Right,
Exactly. And basically, for my thought of it, yes, I do think that the approach in RPG that's taken to this does affect the relationship stuff to a degree, largely because of the same reasons that you brought up, Fox, and because basically, yeah, since with the original Japanese style, the character doesn't have that much personality to them. It basically, yeah, allowed you to project onto them your own personality and your own desires.
Mm-hmm.
So it basically, and I'd imagine this was why a lot of Japanese RPGs that stick to the older style, mainly the Persona type ones, have multiple dating options
Mm-hmm.
for it because they want the player to project their own ideas, whereas in the more Western influenced ones, since there's more of a focus on personality and narrative for the characters, there's therefore less room for interpretation, which, at least in theory, should mean less shipping debates in the fandom.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree with that. Yeah. I think a lot of the fandom projects their perversions on to Cloud, and by the way, I don't think that is without fault from the devs from the OG Final Fantasy VII game, where you are able to take a peek at Tifa's panties. Unfortunately, I think that was definitely the joke at the time, and maybe that kind of humor was seen as appropriate, but I don't think
I
it's something Cloud would characteristically do.
I can definitely say that was considered appropriate humor in Japan at that time, because I watched the original Dragon Ball uncut, which basically presented the episodes as they were aired in Japan back in the 1980s, and there were so many jokes about Bulma's underwear.
That's unfortunate. But I do think with the remake,
that
we
it
are getting a
wasn't cut.
more
That it was
definitive
what?
version of Cloud's actual personality and things he would actually do.
He wouldn't do it. It's just a joke.
Yeah. It's just a prank joke.
Exactly, and yeah, I do prefer how Rebirth chose to handle, Cloud going into Tifa's room.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, I chose not to take a peek into her stuff. Because I was just like, I think Cloud would, honestly.
I don't think Cloud would, and I chose not to myself because it's against his character.
Yeah,
I did it.
Sure.
To be.
I wanted to see what's happening.
I had him choose it when I played the demo, but when I played the actual game, I had him choose not to. I only did it for the demo just because I wanted to see all the different character reactions.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice to see that the reactions from it were Aerith and Tifa calling him an asshole and Parrot saying, I know you're better than this.
Yeah. Which I think that is the game admonishing you for acting outside of Cloud's character.
Yeah, character. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, hi Kitty.
How are you guys?
We're good. How
Hey.
are you?
I'm doing okay, thank you.
Good, good. So we're just talking about a question that my husband asked. What is the difference between Japanese and Western RPGs, and how does that possibly affect the shipping narrative? So anyone who wants to answer the rest of that question can feel totally free.
That's tough because I don't know that can't even think of a Western one. What's a Western one? Because all
Something
the
like
ones I've played are
Um,
Mario, Fire Emblem. You know,
oh,
they're all
So-
Japanese.
all right. I'll just break it down briefly for this, but basically the thing is, the Japanese style is based of an RPG is basically where the character is kind of a blank slate.
Okay.
That is kind of a blank slate. Think like Final Fantasies 1 through 3, where the
Yeah, or
characters are
the early
one.
Legend of Zelda games. If you want a better, I guess, understanding, I guess think of also maybe the first episode of The Mandalorian. I think follows that kind of similar,
Okay.
strong,
Yeah.
silent character type.
Okay.
And
I
then,
think I would have to agree with what you said that the they need a lot of character. I think there's a lot more character involved, character understanding. And I think what I think about the shipping is if their favorite is Tifa, they want her to get Cloud. Period. They don't care what the narrative is. They don't care what the story is. They don't care what they see on screen. They see. I mean, I'm not saying all of them. There might be some that see romance there. I can't speak for all of them, but I do think a lot of them say Tifa's my favorite, so she deserves Cloud. She deserves him.
yeah,
Um, I don't even think they're. I'm. I do agree. Some I agree with you. Think are projecting too,
yeah.
but
For me, it's like I don't think Tifa is even their favorite. To be honest, I think a lot of them actually secretly prefer Aerith because Aerith has a lot of the more interesting dynamics, being magical, being this
mhm.
super kind, in the face of adversity, and she just has this very strong character type, whether you like her or you don't. But I think they do like her, to be honest, because they project a lot of Aerith's personality onto Tifa
I
because
noticed
they
that.
do want Tifa to also be like this perfect vixen.
I definitely see that. I enjoy all the artwork. I think everyone's an excellent artist in the fandom, whether it's Claudia or Clarith or whatever. But I do notice there are a lot of Claudia artwork, and I'm not dogging it in any way. I think it's beautiful. That is very Aerith centered. They'll give her the flowers. They'll give her Aerith flowers, which I think is it's very pretty, but it doesn't really fit. It doesn't go with Tifa. It doesn't belong to her. And like I said, I don't see anything wrong with it. It's just artwork. All their artwork is beautiful, but I see that they are projecting kind of that Aerith feel onto Tifa.
Yeah, like the kind of artwork and fan fiction and all those types of things that I tend to prefer are the characters acting within the bounds of their actual canon personalities. But I
Same.
digress.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's kind of why I haven't. Why prior to seeing your fix, I honestly didn't read much fan fiction because I've found more often than not that fan fiction writers tend to not understand the character that they are writing. Like the last time I read a fan fiction was when someone was speculating on what the next Percy Jackson Heroes of Olympus book was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And like I thought it was fine for what it was, but comparing it to, how the actual book, ended up being, and then going back to it, it made it a lot easier to see, where the fiction author was, inserting himself or herself the author never disclosed their gender on the internet, obviously, into each of the characters, where in comparison to how Rick Riordan, the actual author of those books, wrote the character.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, fan fiction in general is just hard to read if the author themselves doesn't seem to have a good grasp on the character's general personality. And of course, I understand like little nuances can change depending on the circumstances and how the author chooses to grow the character. I think that's perfectly fine. But getting off track a little bit, Andreas, do you? Oh, did he disappear?
He left.
Oh, okay. Well, oh well. So yeah, fan fiction, it's great when it's written, I think, within the bounds of a character. But that is just my opinion, you know. So yeah, do we want to get into the tea today? Does anyone want to introduce the stuff that's been going on with Ever Crisis this past week? Because I've got things I want to say, but I know everyone else probably wants to speak on it as well.
Oh, Jason's here.
Oh, hi, Jason. Well, do we want to
So,
ask him the question, or do we want to go move on with the tea?
Why don't we
Ask him.
give him the questions just to make it fair for everyone involved?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. So there are two questions for you, Jason. First
Okay.
one being, what is your favorite Clerith-coded fictional couple?
My favorite
Oh, I missed that one.
Clerith-coded
Oh, Kitty, you were here
fictional
for that as well. If
couple.
you want to answer that, you feel free, both of you.
That's a good question. Um, Boy, that's a very good question because there's a few couples that fall in that category for me.
I'm
Um,
just gonna say one or two. I think would be a good one.
um, okay, well then it would probably be for me. Uh, Boy, that's tough. The first thing that comes to mind, honestly, is um Rapunzel and Flynn.
Okay,
Um,
that's a good one.
I
Yeah.
really love them as a couple. Um,
Definitely helps that Rapunzel was voiced by Aerith.
Yeah,
and yeah,
for
yeah,
sure. Our
and
OG Aerith.
their stories are so parallel. But I would probably say that the one that to me is more is Clerith-coded is really one that kind of really sticks out, and that is um the couple from the anime uh Snow White with the red hair.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
I really love them as a couple.
Mhm.
She has a personality that's very much like Aerith. She's a little bit more on the serious thinking side, but she's also very free thinking. She is someone that really cares a lot about people, and she's very very outgoing. She always has a positive outlook on everything no matter what the circumstances are, and he's a little bit more stoic, the man that she falls in love with, because he's a prince, so he has
Mhm.
more of a serious view of the world, trying to, of course, fit the role of the ruler that he's going to be. But the way that these two kind of come together, it's really kind of like by chance that they meet, and the way that they fall in love to me is very very similar to Cloud and Aerith, because they complement each other on so many different levels, and they kind of draw strength from each other. He looks at her as his guide, but at the same time she looks at him as hers. So it's just, I really love their dynamic.
Yeah, it's true. I
Yeah,
totally forgot about
that's
them.
so on point. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then
Because
what
that
was
is
the second question?
Uh, hold on, Kitty. Do you want to answer the first question of favorite Clerith-coded couple?
yes, I would love to. I have many, but I think the one that really reminds me a lot about it is A Walk to Remember, obviously. Not only because
Yay!
I was new to I was new to it with remake. So, when she says she warns him, obviously, not to fall in love with her, because she doesn't wanna hurt him. But I think a lot of it has to do with their love even at the end of the movie when he is, on the dock and he says, "Our love is like the wind. I can't see it, but I can feel it." And it reminds me a lot about even when Aerith is dead, Cloud can still feel her, still loves her, and I feel the same way he feels. He continues to love her regardless, and it continues to feel her love regardless of whether she's gone or not.
Yeah,
Uh,
for
Mhm.
sure. And I
I
think there's
like
a
that.
like just in No Promises to Keep, there is a basically like shot for shot revision from I think A Walk to Remember when Jamie sang "Only Hope," and there are a lot of
Yes,
similar vibes to what Jamie sang about and what Aerith sang about, and they're both in a play.
agree, agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you tweeting that, Fox, back when the trailer dropped. You just tweet for no reason. What to Remember is a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. So.
And the pictures you posted were of, the play scenes.
Mm-hmm. Because it's true. Like I do think that the developers probably watched that movie and took some inspiration, and I think they also took a lot of inspiration for changing. I think some of the dynamic and symbolism to the yellow flower from Tangled.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Definitely. You can definitely see it. And Kasasi and Nomura, as well as uh Nojima, they all said that they've looked at various elements in literature, movies, books, that sort of thing. So they've taken a lot of elements from different themes when coming up with with the concept for Final Fantasy VII and Cloud and Air. So it's not surprising to see a lot of parallels with some other movie or theme content that would be parallel to them. It's quite a bit.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
especially with American films, because Nomura himself has made it no secret that he is a big fan of what, from his perspective, is a foreign film.
Right.
Oh, that's
Uh,
that's very true. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
and like kind of going off of that, I actually do agree with you that Nomura probably has did watch that movie at some point where he was getting the idea for it, because I recently saw in an interview with Max Middleman, he talked about how when he was auditioning, it was Nomura himself that was determining the English cast.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if Nomura was watching that movie and recognized Mandy Moore in it from his time on
Mhm.
Kingdom Hearts.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they should have just
Um,
called
Mhm.
back Mandy Moore. I think. I don't know.
Mhm.
I will never be not salty about Mandy Moore not showing up for Advent Children in the second Kingdom Hearts game. No, like, no offense to Mina though. Like, I think she did the best she could. But yeah, so the second question posed by One Man Jack, also known as my husband, was what do you think the differences are between Western and Japanese RPGs, and how does that translate into the shipping dynamic in Final Fantasy VII, if any?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, well, I would say that JRPGs still deal. I mean, most of their storylines and their plots, especially when it comes to relationships, is still very much based on Eastern culture, and the way that they communicate and the way that they express their feelings in relationships, which is very, very different from Western culture. One of the areas that you could probably see a huge difference in that is the way that they make use of hand and eye contact. in their JRPGs.
I
There's
would
a
also say
lot of hand,
symbolism
a
as
lot of.
well.
Pardon me.
I would also say symbolism as well. I think uh, Japanese love stories in general use a lot more symbolism.
Oh, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely use a lot
totally.
more symbolism. There's a lot of symbolism. There's a lot of mythology that they use in their storytelling, especially when it comes to love, like the symbolism of the flowers, the mythology of the language of flowers, or the red string of destiny, or other areas
Mhm.
elements that they use to try to express and explain relationships and loves. In Western culture, we have a more direct approach to the way that we
Mhm.
do it. We do
Mm-hmm.
use some shyness from time to time in certain areas, but we're more of very direct. You know, we're unsubtle. We're not really very subtle when it comes to the way that we
That's
express
true.
love in culture. Now we're pretty good at doing it from time to time, like in Disney films and things like that. But for the most part, in Western culture, we're very very direct. So we don't use some of that subtlety in the way that Eastern cultures do. And I think that there's something poetic about it because it allows the spectator to actually draw more emotion from it when they do that, as where the direct approach just kind of cuts straight to it. And that's okay, but when you're doing it from a literary standpoint, you want to draw the spectator in, so you have to use subtleties and symbolisms to really kind of harness the maximum emotional effect. It's kind of like when you're reading a book. When you're reading a book, there's a lot more elaboration in the book than there is in an actual film that you may be watching. And the reason being is that the narrator has to be more illustrative in order to pique your imagination, your creativity and your imagination when you're reading that book. And I think that animes and Japanese culture, or Eastern culture rather, they're very good at using artistry with symbolism and mythology and things like the eyes. I love the whole eye language that they love to use in JRPGs, animes, and so on and so forth, because it says a whole lot. The eyes just always are saying a lot. And then when you look at a game, when you play a game like Final Fantasy 7, and you see the eye contact that Cloud and Aerith make repeatedly through the game, you feel that. You can actually feel that. It's like it's what's being said when their eyes meet are more than any words could ever say. And even though you're wondering what they might be thinking, what they might be feeling, the eyes pretty much are the dead giveaway. It's kind of like, the first time you see their eyes meet, you know, you see that there's that, in remake, you see that there's that familiarity with each other. They feel like they've been here before. When they're in um, when they're at the Midori Park scene and they're getting ready to part from each other. Yes, he could have said something like he wasn't ready to leave yet, but the eyes as they both are staring at each other say everything. I mean, that long, 2-minute look where they're just gazing at each other, and neither one wants to part. You feel that to the depth of your soul. You feel that, and then
Mm-hmm.
the same thing throughout the remake and throughout Rebirth, and that's just not something that you really see a lot of in Western culture. Not that they can't do it; it's just that our writers like doing the more direct approach, and that's part of Western culture. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I really agree. That's also a reason why I love Japanese games so much. These symbolisms, these how you say poetic elements.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lot
absolutely.
to speculate on and to analyze, and I think that's part of the fun of Japanese culture for sure.
Oh yeah.
Whereas I
And
think
one.
Mhm.
the way that it would that answer would translate into I think how the shipping dynamic is in at least the western part of the shipping dynamic on Twitter is that I think a lot of it goes over Cloty's heads.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
All right, any other thoughts, any comments, questions, concerns?
Nope.
No?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
was just going to say. Well, just one last point on that we were mentioning is that one of the areas with that is, for example, in the game, you can see the contrast and the difference between the eye communication between Cloud and Aerith versus the eye communication between Cloud and Tifa. It's virtually non-existent, and when there is, it's telling a very different story. You can see that when the eye contact that they make, they're not on the same page with probably like 90% of everything, and you can really see the difference. It's not that love language is not there in their eyes when the two of them look at each other. But you can see it evidently clear in the way that he gazes at Aerith. Even even the scene where she's singing, and it's funny too because even in the scene where he's supposedly on a date with Tifa, and he's even holding her hand, you can still see the language in his eyes, the way that
Mhm.
he's gazing at her. It is evidently clear he might be standing hand in hand with Tifa, but his heart and his eyes are fixed, on Aerith, and you can absolutely see it. And I always laugh when I see that thing because I'm just like, that's got to be embarrassing. Because as a woman, you can't tell me she didn't glance over at him, probably even feeling a certain way as she was looking over at him, and then she sees his eyes and probably pauses for a minute and realizes that his eyes are locked. And then she sees the glances that Aerith is giving back him, and she realizes, okay, there's this thing going on right while she's holding his hand, where it's between these two and not her. I mean, I can only imagine what that's making her feel like when she sees that. And she's not as many problems as she's has. She's not stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed for sure on that. But yeah, I don't think does Cloud even glance over in her direction like once throughout that entire performance, and then even afterwards. I can't genuinely remember. I don't think he does because then you would have to do extra stuff with the model, right?
I don't recall. I don't recall him ever glancing in
I
her
honestly
direction.
don't watch that version that often because I don't care.
I don't either. I've seen it a couple of times, but the couple of times that I saw it, he's looking at her at Aerith the whole time, and he never breaks eye contact with her. Even when he reaches down and the two of them hold hands, he never breaks eye contact with Aerith. That's why you have some Clodies will look at that and they say, "Oh, it's so romantic." I look at it, and I think to myself, "No, not really," because he might be taking her hand for emotional support in that moment, but that's just because he's in the heat of the moment with his eyes locked on her. It's kind of like there could have been a arm post standing there, and he would have gripped it at the time
Mhm.
because he's in his feelings. So it just happened to be that she's standing there, and so he goes ahead. She's reaching for his hand, so he goes ahead and he takes her hand because he's lost in the moment. But his eyes, his gaze, his breath, when you see him gasp as he's looking at her, and how his eyes open and jaw drops as he's looking at
I
her,
mean, I just think that
everything is
Cloud didn't
completely
want to
locked.
be rude. It's like, what was he gonna do? Like jerk his hand away during
Yeah.
this
Exactly,
really beautiful
exactly.
moment?
No, no, no. He's not rude like that. So of course not. He took her hand, since she reached over and gestured it, she initiated it. And that's the other thing. Every single time, it's always her initiating it. And he doesn't really
Mhm.
reciprocate. He simply acquiesces. And there's a difference between reciprocation and acquiescing.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So, do y'all want to get into the tea for today with the Ever Crisis drama?
Sure, I need to be brought up to speed with that too as well.
Okay, so it's not too difficult to understand. For the most recent Ever Crisis event, there's a crossover between Final Fantasy VI and Final
Yes.
Fantasy VII, which again, it's just the characters dressing up as Final Fantasy VI characters. Aerith got Terra, who is the main heroine of Final Fantasy VI.
Right.
Cloud got Locke. Sephiroth got Edgar, Tifa, and this is the controversial one. She got Sabine or Sabin. I don't know how you say his name.
Stop it.
Yeah. And Cloties are not being very appreciative of what they got. And in my opinion, I hope that the developers learn from this and just don't include Tifa in the next one. Give
Right.
another
That
character a
would be
chance to
hilarious.
shine.
So what's their issue with Tifa being Savan?
Okay. Okay.
She's
Okay.
not
Okay.
jealous.
So
She's
their
I
jealous.
issue
hope
with
her
this.
she's ready to go, but yeah, Anything
Um,
y'all want to read or
uh,
say to answer the question, feel free. Yeah.
um, I was just going to describe it. So the issue they have with it is that Sabin is a monk. So and so they
That is
think
the
that
issue they are
Square,
posing. That is their guise. I don't think that's the real issue.
Right. That's what they're saying it is. Yeah, they're
Okay.
saying it's. Yeah, they're saying it's because Sabin is a monk, and arguing that Square is just restricting her only to characters that have the same class. However, the more likely reason is because in context for the Final Fantasy VI plot, and this is like minor spoilers, but basically, so Locke, who is Cloud in the crossover, in Final Fantasy VI, Locke has a romantic relationship with another girl named Celis, who is also a late member of the party, and she is considered one of the more iconic characters from Final Fantasy VI.
And she's also what I would
So,
consider a secondary heroine. Like she does have a very beautiful love story in Final Fantasy VI.
Okay.
She and
uh,
Locke do,
um,
yeah. Oh, and I should
yeah,
mention just before, like, sorry to interrupt you, CY, but she does also have her own precursor Aerith theme that she sings in the game. That it sounds very much like notes from Aerith's theme in Final Fantasy VII, and I definitely think that served as a precursor for Aerith's theme going
Okay.
forward.
That's
um,
nice.
Shares a lot of the
all
same
right.
motifs, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. The same notes, same musical notes.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But yeah, so basically, the Clodies, because they've deluded themselves into thinking that Tifa is just as important as Cloud and Aerith. They basically were convinced that if Aerith got Terra and Cloud got Locke, that would mean that Tifa got Celis. But really, they just wanted it, to validate the Clody ship because, again, Locke and Celis is the canon pairing of FF6.
Hmm.
I see. Gotcha. So
Yeah.
the real issue is that they wanted Tifa to be Celis in order to justify that ship.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Exactly.
Yes.
The irony is that Tifa is a monk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's that's the irony. I mean, she does study under the tutelage of a martial arts, basically a monk style martial artist. Who he does what he does. So in essence, she really is. So they really gave her the role that most fits what her character is in Final Fantasy VII. The same thing with Terra, and the same thing with Locke. But yeah, I understand that the hidden behind the scenes what the real issue is for them. But hey, tough luck.
Well,
Hmm.
I think it's worth mentioning all of the parallels between Cloud and Locke's story. Like, granted, does end very differently, and maybe this is a controversial take. Is that I definitely think that in a lot of ways the not sorry, the Locke and Rachel dynamic in Final Fantasy VI is everything that Cloud and Tifa shippers wanted between them, and it's not. It's actually like they are a lot closer to being more like Cloud and Aerith because Locke was also bullied and outcasted in his childhood, and Rachel came along and befriended him, and then there was this beautiful friendship between them, and then Rachel was eventually lost to the consequences of war, and Locke blames himself for not being able to protect her and kind of goes on this treasure hunt to find ways to bring her back from the dead, which he eventually achieves for a short while. And Rachel tells him it's okay to go ahead and move on with his life. And I think the fact that the devs didn't cast Tifa in that role of Celeste, who Locke does eventually move on with, says that Tifa is not Locke's or Cloud's future. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
Right, right. And it sounds to me that they were being opportunistic in their false hope because uh, since Aerith got Terra, they're looking at that as being wide open to set up Tifa with Celeste, and that didn't happen. And so now that just makes them more frustrated because they're like, okay, even when Aerith is not put in the position of the love interest for the main character in this particular case,
Mm-hmm.
they still don't get an opportunity to
Well,
be
my
in
theory,
that position as
honestly,
well.
is that I can't imagine that it didn't cross the dev's mind to cast Tifa in the role as Celeste. But I think with choosing Final Fantasy VI to begin with, they wanted to dodge the whole thing of the love triangle debate to some degree. And I think it's another case where if they wanted to, they could have if they had wanted to, but they didn't. Like, there's no reason they can't like alter Celeste's look to be more like Tifa and vice versa, or give her a weapon type that is similar, like give her yellow, blue, whatever Celeste's character uh, style type to Tifa. But I think they just didn't want to because they
Right.
don't
Let's
they
just
don't
face
care
it.
to give that
There's a
kind
few
of
crossovers that
controversy.
they've done. There's a few crossovers that they've done with Ever Crisis that they could have done this
Well,
for
yeah, there
Tifa
was
if
the
they had
one
wanted.
other where Cloud and Aerith were dressed up as the main couple from Final Fantasy IX
Right.
as Garnet
Mhm.
and Zidane, whereas Tifa got
Right.
Amaranth, and
Right.
Yeah.
Amaranth is
There's
also
a theme,
a monk type.
right. There's a theme they're gonna follow.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I think the easy way
regardless,
out
and
of the
it's
love
either
triangle is just to keep Tifa restrained to the monk or brawler types of
right.
characters.
Right. And that's exactly what they're gonna do. I
Yeah.
mean, they they. Sorry, I don't. You know, I'm laughing because when I think about this, sometimes I almost wonder if Square's playing games with Clody on purpose. Like
No,
they're
one
having
hundred
fun with
percent. That's what
this,
I think that they did. I think
Yeah.
like they dodged it, but they're also kind of trolling in their own special way.
right? In their own way, they're trolling.
Yeah,
They're trolling Clody.
yeah, no, I can
And,
personally attest. I can personally attest to them trolling it because here was how they went about announcing the costumes in the trailer.
uh,
So in the trailer, they first show off Aerith as Terra,
Mm-hmm.
then they show
Mhm.
Cloud as Locke, and then Tifa as Sabin. So you literally had Clody's
Yeah, for a split
seeing
second,
Aerith.
you when you see Cloud, they were hoping that Tifa got Celeste.
right.
Right, right, exactly. It's basically like that one GIF meme of KSI. Yes, yes, yes. No, no, no.
Yeah, exactly. And it's beautiful to watch them cry about it for sure. I also think
Oh
it's
yeah.
worth shouting out to the fact that the developers decided to drop that trailer on Clerith-coded, where the prompt was dressing Final Fantasy, or sorry, dressing Cloud and Aerith in different Final Fantasy costumes.
Right.
That's
That's just super
perfect.
fun. I don't think that's a coincidence. I'm gonna be honest. Like, it's just too perfect.
Of course
Uh,
not. Of course it
yeah,
isn't.
yeah, no. If this was the first time, I'd definitely say it was a coincidence. But with the fact that so many of Hamaguchi's Clerith postings have happened conveniently on Clerith Fridays.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
us.
Like, yeah, because Clearance Fridays have only recently also become a thing, like within the past, I think August or September of this year, and
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
for weeks now, for Ever Crisis and for dev interviews, and even Hamaguchi also posting on Clear Fridays, like it's just been too convenient.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I definitely think there's a pattern of behavior. If there weren't a pattern of behavior, I don't think I would chop this all up to being fate.
You know, if it is them doing this on purpose, I can't really say that I blame them. I mean, if you consider the fact that, for one, their storytelling has been disrespected by the fact that Clodies don't accept the official storyline. Then to top it off, they have been harassed, they have been attacked, their writers and developers have been harassed and attacked. I mean, think about the campaign they went on Nojima about, to the point that Nojima was considering shutting down his Twitter page. So
Mhm.
I think that they have done excellent restraint to not engage in that arena. So what they're doing is they're doing it in the arena that they control, and that's within the content of their games. And in essence, that's what they're doing is that they're trolling Clodies with their games. They went ahead and they give this very, in a lot of ways, I'm going to be honest with you. In a lot of ways, I feel like, in the one hand, yes, they admitted that it was fan service, the date between Cloud and Tifa in Rebirth, but I also feel like they did that intentionally for the story. And what I mean by that is that I think they wanted to paint and portray the scenario that this always has been something that Tifa's been making up in her own head.
Mm-hmm.
And by having
Yeah.
Cloud be so
Oh, definitely.
detracted and still focus on Aerith, but somehow Tifa dismisses it because she's so blinded by her own fantasy that she goes ahead and she engages in something that, to be truthfully honest, she knew deep down that Cloud wasn't on the same page. I always go back to that meme that got posted on Twitter maybe about a month or so before Rebirth drop, and I always wondered why did Final Fantasy VII officially post that, and that's the one where Cloud and Tifa are on the sky wheel, and Cloud
The
mentions
trailer?
Sarah's name.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know who made that little anime, but FF7 officially posted it. They
I
officially posted it
love it.
on their
I don't
page,
know if it was
and
Final Fantasy VII or Square Enix on their official channel.
yeah, it
I'm
was
pretty sure it
their
was Square
official
Enix.
channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Square Enix's
Yeah,
official
it was
FF7
on their
channel.
official. Yeah, it was on their official channel, and they posted it for Valentine's Day.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
just
and
a few days
it was
before the release of Rebirth. Yeah.
yeah, just before the few
Yeah,
days.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just a few days before the release of Rebirth, and it was hilarious. And I always thought to myself, why did? Because and that was the thing. I was like you, Fox. I wasn't sure if it was official, so I went and I checked the page because I wanted to make sure. Because I was like, this seems kind of odd that Square would officially post this on their page. This is probably going to make Chloe's angry. But when I went to the page, it's their official. It's blue check marked and everything. It's their official Final Fantasy VII
This
page,
was all when
and
the
they
Kiss
literally.
stuff was happening too.
Yep. This is when all that stuff was happening as well, and they posted this, and they it's funny because Steve is clearly annoyed that Cloud called out Aerith's name, and
Twice.
Des-
Yeah.
he's
I definitely
desperately
think
trying to fix it.
because Clarets were
Yeah.
asking the question, well, what's the context of the kiss? What's the context of the kiss? And I feel
Exactly.
Square Enix kindly provided that context. It's Aerith.
Exactly. They provided the context, and they even made a joke of it when they posted that meme that in reality, he's not really into the date itself. His mind is somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I did not understand why uh uh Square made such fun of it by posting that meme until I actually saw the official scene. And when I actually saw the official scene, it all made sense why they did that meme, why they dropped that meme. And again, I don't know who made it, but the fact that they officially posted it less than a week before the game released, it was like they were putting their seal of approval on the joke that yes, this is a joke. That because he's not really into her like that. His mind is someone else. And sure enough, what happens? On their date, he brings up Aerith. Did you talk to Aerith?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Do you
Yeah.
think
Like,
she
I
still
guess she
has
still has
feelings?
feelings
And
for Zach.
right,
Dang.
and she's got to be sitting there thinking to herself, "Why are we even having this conversation? Like seriously, you know what I'm saying?" So I can totally understand why they did that. And then when you go to the interviews that Nojima and them gave, that they were kind of embarrassed even doing that scene, that it was something they were really kind of icky about doing anyway. But they went ahead and they did it for fan service. So this was really their way of making fun of it, by posting that meme because that's what it really meant to them. You see what I'm saying? It was a joke to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just remember thinking to myself, like, wow, like they are trolling Clody's big time.
Mhm.
For sure, for
And I
sure.
love
But
this little video so much. I could watch it so many times.
yeah, do we want to
And
read some of
yeah,
the
after I
tweets?
saw, sorry.
Oh no,
I
go
honest,
ahead.
I honestly had, I honestly had to watch that video 5 times before I was convinced it was real because it just felt like something out of a fever dream of it. Like them on the gondola. Isn't this romantic? Cloud. Yeah, yes, it sure is, Aerith.
Mm-hmm. Wishing that she was just Aerith. Like, he's like, damn, Genova made
Mhm.
me get the wrong date. This sucks.
That's what the Genova theories. That's the real answer to it. Genova is the player.
Genova is the
Mhm.
player that wants to ship Cloud and Tifa for sure because Tifa does inadvertently bring out the soldier
Sport
persona.
persona?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whereas Aerith deconstructs that persona and is able to bring out elements of, I don't want to say the real Cloud, but I'm gonna go ahead and say the new Cloud, where he's
Mhm.
discovering who he is and who he wants to be to her.
Mhm.
Yes, the part of him he didn't even know existed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I think Ever
Exactly.
Crisis
Yeah.
explained that beautifully.
That's just to me just one of the most amazing things that they did that whole scene like that. And to me, again, these are all little things that because I went back and I watched that whole clip, between the two of them, and they're talking about their future together and how she wants to spend it with him. She wants to travel the world and see everything and venture with him. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and the part of himself and explore the part of himself he didn't even know was there. While at the same time he's admitting to her that when he's with her, there's a part of him that comes out that he didn't even know existed. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up and then sit back and try to deny the relationship between those two. But Square continues to keep peeling the layers back of their relationship, literally allowing us to go literally into the depths of what their relationship actually is. You cannot honestly look at this and not see what it is that Square is doing and how they're writing this because that's so blatant and it blows away any of the narratives about now we already have proven okay the narrative was blown away about Zack, but when you see scenes like this it completely blows that away because here it is he's admitting that there's parts of himself that he doesn't know, but when he's with her it's like something about her helps him tap into it, and he and more than that he's admitting not only that there's that part of himself that he didn't know existed, he likes that part of himself when he's with her. And so it's like a confession where he's saying he likes who he is when he's with her. So he wants to continue to be with her and she's basically saying she wants to continue to be with him and that part of himself that he didn't know that existed, which completely blows away the narrative that she's doing all this in some way or reason because she's still hanging on to this whole Zack idea. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like Square keeps blowing the door right off of their notions, their narratives at every opportunity that they get. That's why to me it's funny when they troll the way that they do because it's like okay, you really are being very very intentionally ignorant about the situation if you can't see it because they made it very very clear we're doing this in a way to make it easy to understand. There's not a lot of stuff going on that's difficult to see, so and when you play the game you clearly see it, so it's like okay what's not to understand. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
obvious from the minute the game starts. You see the relationship with these two developing in a way that's absolutely. I want to say it's almost embarrassingly obvious. Like wow, they went so obvious with this. It almost gets to the point. I mean, think about it. It gets to the point where Barrett has to tell them no more dates. Okay,
Mhm.
because they're literally just broadcasting. Yeah, we went out on a date. Okay, and it's really amazing. So I don't understand why they do this, and and the thing is that the way that they've done this, in my opinion, it doesn't really change anything other than the plot in terms of what remake is doing, but in terms of the narrative between the love between those two, it's not really changing from OG. All it is doing is giving life and elaborating it so that it's even more clear than it was if you played OG.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I 100% agree with that analysis. Beautifully said,
Me too.
Jason. I mean, I
Yes.
think in general, Ever Crisis is giving us a lot of the content that Clarice have been craving between, the OG and now just forever. And there's so much to feast on. There's so much to talk about, especially when it just comes to the dynamic in Ever Crisis and the side events. Like we don't even have the Final Fantasy VI event until tomorrow, and I'm super excited. I don't know if we will get anything super clarithy, but aside from the implications of Aerith is the main heroine and Cloud is the main hero, and a lot of Cloud's story lines up
Mhm.
with Locke's, there's just a different ending dynamic because I don't think Aerith has ever implied that she wants Cloud to move on just to just to heal himself. I don't know. It's a very different dynamic, and there are nuances, but I think
Mhm.
there are crossovers and similarities that I could go on about. But do we want to get into like the Clotey? Because I posted some of the screenshots in the chat if anyone wants to go over them and deconstruct their arguments or debate as it is.
Mhm. First of all, I say Tifa's outfit is not ugly.
Yeah, I think the
It's,
outfit was
it's
really cute. And you
yeah,
know me, I'm not a Tifa
it's
fan,
my
Wait,
but I
second
can admit
favorite
uh,
of
when,
her
wait,
when they
wait a
do a
minute.
outfits.
good job.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Should we read out what the tweet says so that those who are watching know what we're talking about?
Yeah, for sure. I think that would be a
Yeah.
lot easier. I can scroll up as well since I'm capturing the
Uh, uh,
Discord. So, do we want to start with the first one?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, I'll start with it. So first we have from at Theaf07. So in all of the FF collabs, Aerith is going to get the beautiful heroine outfits, while Tifa is getting the ugly male monk ones. But you still expect us to believe the fake double heroines marketing. I rather you don't use Tifa for anything in this game ever again, so I quit.
Okay, bye, Felicia. um, any thoughts before I speak?
Yeah, not ugly first.
Yeah, definitely not.
And I don't think there are really double heroines. She's more of a
She's a
mm,
supporting heroine. I
side
wouldn't
character,
call her
like
secondary to Aerith. I think that, honestly, my
yeah,
opinion is that,
more like
just
what.
because she has a dynamic with Cloud in her own right does not make her
Mhm.
a second heroine just because Aerith dies.
I put her on the same level as Yuffie and Sid and Nanaki and the others.
Yeah, she's
But
just
the
as
main
useful
three,
as they are. She's just as
mhm,
prominent as they are.
yeah, but not as important as Aerith, Cloud, and Sephiroth.
For sure,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. I also just don't think
We-
that her outfit
Um,
is ugly. Like I think her top complements her well. She has a very Laura Croft vibe to her.
as always, yeah.
I think
It's
her model
nothing
looks
new.
just so much better with color. Like she's almost giving like those Snow White vibes, in my opinion, with the dark hair,
Mhm.
the blue top, kind of the yellowy orange bottom. I think it's really nice on her,
Mhm.
and I really like her hair as well. I
Also
think it
like her
frames her
ponytail.
as well. Yeah,
And-
It's super cute. I think it shows
Mhm.
a lack of thankfulness, in my opinion.
yeah,
I wouldn't care what Aerith got. Honestly,
yeah.
I'm just glad
Aerith
she
is
would get
beautiful no matter
something because
what.
I wouldn't drop it. Bye, bye. I'm being a big baby. Like I just be like, well, she looks pretty and everything. So whatever they give her, you should be grateful
I'm just
for.
glad that
There
Aerith
should
was
be,
included, because there was a long
yeah.
time where she just wasn't.
Mhm.
And that kind of response is ungrateful. Okay, I'm
Okay.
leaving. You know.
Yeah. It's just
Okay.
like, thank you, devs. Thank you, Square. Because didn't they start like their own campaign of thanking the devs to do some sort of damage
Mm,
control. I think
I think so.
like I can't remember what it was when the whole Nojima thing happened with one of the
Yeah, I
clerics,
remember that.
unfortunately threatening the life of his guinea pig, and they started their own
Oh,
campaign
yeah.
for that, and yeah, not cool with that what that one cleric did, but it was
Yeah,
so
definitely.
disingenuous, I think, on their part, and this is what they really think of everything that the devs are doing. That is if Tifa isn't elevated to secondary heroine or dual heroine, that the devs don't respect her as a character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the second
I
one.
actually wanna.
Uh,
Sorry,
no, 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 go ahead.
I just wanted to say I want them to actually um stay to the word and boycott or just leave. If you
Yeah,
don't
just leave
like
the
it,
fandom. We
then
don't
don't
need you.
leave.
It would honestly be better
Yeah,
without them.
yeah.
Okay, I was just
If
copying these screenshots as they came about. But yeah, there's this one. We are the granddaughters of the witches you couldn't burn, and this person took the extra mile to at the official accounts.
hmm, hmm, I have no words for this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
this
just
one's just funny to
So
me.
disrespectful.
Like it's not that deep, Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't know if Japan even participated in like witch burnings. They could have. I don't know, but
I don't know.
it's stupid.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure Japan didn't.
Yeah. I mean, I can't state either one, but it is ridiculous to even think about in terms of just, well, this is a video game. I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure if they had that technology back then, the devs would have for sure have been burned. Um, I don't know. There's just no words for how funny this one is, though. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, what do you mean? We are the granddaughters of the witch you couldn't burn. Like, what does that have to do with anything?
I don't know.
What
Jacob,
is this supposed to be referring to?
I have no
Is
idea
there
because they're
witches?
they're pissed off at Tifa's outfit, which is
So what are they? So they try to. They're trying to say we burned Tifa somehow or something.
that the devs did,
Oh,
and
That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean. Yes.
yeah, yeah. I just I don't know. I don't know what the implication is. It's just like I think their meltdown is incoherent.
Yeah, that's
hmm.
exactly what it is. But this is what they've always done. This is what they've always done when they don't get what it is that they wanted. This is the same meltdown that they did after going on a campaign a week before Rebirth dropped, and then when it dropped and the truth started coming out, they started having an absolute nuclear meltdown over it. They had a nuclear meltdown over the crossover with Zidane and
Reno,
yeah,
nicht Renoir.
yeah,
Janet.
they exactly they just they can't take the fact that Tifa is not in that category with Cloud and never
Hmm.
can be. Okay,
Yeah.
she is a plot device. She always has been, and the best that they're going to get out of her is that you might get some independent arc that separates her even further from the main characters at best. You know what I'm saying? And it's not even intended to be mean to her. It's just that that's what was written for the story, and they're not going to change that. See, what they're wanting because of their own ship is they just simply want Square to rewrite the story and make it where Cloud and Tifa have been in love with each other since children, and that never changed, and they've just grown into this bond that's just greater than whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That could never work. And the reason why that could never work is because unless you were to rewrite Final Fantasy VII without Aerith in the picture, that was always going to be an awkward spin because she was always supposed to be the reason why Cloud rose to the occasion to become the hero that he became. Okay, is that
Mhm.
she brought that out of him. She's the one that got him, that rose him to that level, because he came to value the things that she did because he cared
Yep.
for her. You see what I'm saying? Without her, Cloud doesn't raise to that level. Yes, he's had moments where he did it, like out of vengeance when he fought Sephiroth the first time in Nibelheim, but
Mhm.
nothing was ever going to raise him to that level until he met her. Okay, when he met her, it
Yep.
changed things from the moment that he broke down. And here's the funny thing: the funny thing is that even though he was broken because of Aerith's death, what actually broke him up really was Tifa unwillingness to tell the truth about who
Yep.
he really was and his identity. And the problem with that is that you're allowing a person who's already broken over having lost someone dear to him now suddenly being made to believe you're not real. So now the
Mhm.
devastation of that is even double what it was, because now you're thinking to yourself, was that love that I had for this person ever real if I'm not real? That's a
Yeah.
double
Yep.
whammy. You know what I'm saying? That's
Mhm.
devastating to you, to realize that all these feelings all these having, now you're saying I'm not real. So then this could never have been. I could never have, you know what I'm saying, been with her. But then once he gets his mind back, and then he goes on the journey to find out that she did succeed in praying for Holy, and he realizes what all that she ended up sacrificing in the end. It actually renewed him in his determination to fulfill what she dreamed, what she wanted. And that's why he
Yep.
says at the end of that, I see now what you did. I'll make sure and ensure that we save the planet. He even mentions something like that in the dialogue between him and
Mhm.
Rufus when he talks about Aerith. Aerith is the single sole purpose that he
That's
rose
how.
to the occasion of
Mhm.
saving the world and being the hero. So if
Yeah.
you try to write in there that Cloud and Tifa somehow are the lovers of the story from the very beginning of their childhood, then you completely destroy the narrative that causes him to become the hero. Because let's face it, Tifa never did that for him. Tifa just got him in trouble. Okay,
Mhm.
she
Mm-hmm.
constantly got him in trouble. She constantly caused major setbacks from the situation with the bridge collapsing, and
Mhm.
then he's blamed for that. To the situation with him cracking up at the northern crater. You know what I'm saying? This has all been her doing, or lack thereof, of being honest. So she's not really in the position to raise him to the level of hero. And it's narratively written in the story that it is Aerith that brings his real self to the surface, and opens up and unlocks those things that are within him. So if you rewrite that love story, you're rewriting Final Fantasy VII as a whole, and
Yeah, I don't think
Square's
it's
not going to
a
do that.
Yeah.
coincidence that after Aerith dies and that when Tifa is what they say is brought more to the forefront afterwards and she becomes a heroine to Cloud, that Cloud actually regresses a lot. Like, he's not as talkative. He has his existential crisis. He melts down. He becomes catatonic and needs saving
Right,
within the
Mhm.
life stream. And even Tifa admits that Cloud kind of had to save himself in that situation. And Tifa is backed
right,
into a corner until she finally admits, when her own life is in
Yep.
jeopardy, that
Yep.
everything is
Yep.
a lie.
right. And
Mhm.
the thing that to me also that's the most damning in this whole thing too as well, is that there's the scene in disc 3 of OG where she reminisces about when she first reunited with Cloud, when she found him at the Sector
Yeah.
7 substation. She
Mhm.
admits from the very beginning that she was lying to him. I thought Ever Crisis did a very good job of illustrating this and the thinking on both sides of it. Okay.
Yeah.
From the fact that she knew something wasn't right with Cloud, she knew that there was something that was wrong, but because she wanted to keep him close, she didn't say anything, and instead she got him involved in Avalanche, which was probably the last thing that he needed given his state of
Mhm.
mind. But she did it so that she could remain close to him. And then Cloud, being in the state of mind that he was, didn't even really want to go with her but because she was the only person in his memory that he could focus on at the time that would give him some sense of identity. Okay, she's from my childhood, so that at least is the one fixed point in time that I can, fixate on that I'm me. So he went ahead and he
Mhm.
went along with it. He went ahead and he chose to help her, but he didn't even want to do that then. And that goes to show that the relationship that they had when they were children wasn't a good one. The fact that he didn't even really want to go with her, even when she was insisting. He kept saying in Ever Crisis, when I finally established myself, it was that I may get back to you.
Mhm.
Basically, like, I'm going this way, you can go that way, and maybe one day we might meet up. Maybe. And
Right.
then she insisted, and he decides because of his own, he was feeling something wasn't totally right himself. He went ahead and he did it because she was just simply the one entity at that moment that gave him a sense of identity. That's it. You know what I'm saying? And everything that he does when he's around her is based on that sense of identity. What he wanted to be in terms of being a hero, what he's trying to hang on to in terms of his identity, which is the reason why he keeps acquiescing to things that she kind of fishes out of him. The compliments, the getting him to help her,
Mhm.
sticking around when he says, "Well, I have a promise to keep." None of it is genuinely because he cares for her, and that's not to say he doesn't. I don't want to turn this into he's a bad person, because in his small way he does care about her, but it's based on obligations that was put
Yeah.
on him, is really what it's
Right.
based on. It's not based on his free desire to actually want to care for her and take care of her. That doesn't really happen until much, much later. Much, much later, he changes his thought processes on that, and he actually does want to be his friend, and that's well after the Highwind scene. But up until that point, he's acting out a role because of the failures that he sees within himself, and he sees her
Yeah, just
as
don't interject
simply
real
the
fast. I
means.
will be right back, but
Yeah,
y'all keep talking, and if y'all want to go on to the next tweet, just feel free. I will just be right
sure
back.
thing. Sure thing.
Okay.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's the thing that narratively, going all the way back to OG, was always the case, and I think what remake did a really good job of was showing that when in chapter 3 of remake, as they're going around on the different jobs, she's seeing how different he is. And it's even frightening her because the image that she's made out of him all this time is not the image that he's putting forth at this moment in time. And she doesn't
Mhm.
really know what to do with it. And throughout the entire two games that you play, she's always in this position of not really knowing how to deal with Cloud. It's only
Yeah.
until the moment that he almost kills her that she realizes just how bad it is in terms of his mental state. And then she gets that reveal about him having saved her at the bridge. She gets that one memory back, and that even kind of messes things up in her head, because right when she was finally getting to the point where she was realizing, okay, Cloud's a really messed up guy, you know what I'm saying, then she gets this memory of this heroism that he did, which only further aids in jading her opinion of him, to the point that
Mhm.
instead of realizing this guy's messed up, she uses it as an opportunity to try to get close. You
Yeah.
see what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was the wrong time to be doing that. But she can't
Oh
even
yeah.
help herself when it comes to those sort of things, because she's looking through this lens of this crush that she's had for years because of this idea that she created. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, you're in this shipping dynamic, you have Clodies who have created this dynamic out of their own mind, their own imagination, to the point that they've disregarded all of these facts within the story, and they don't even see that. And so in their mind, what they really want is for Square to rewrite the story in their image, in their imagination. That's what they want. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
they're not happy because they genuinely believe in their twisted state of mind that that is the real story, and somehow Square is destroying it, and they can't understand why Square is doing this. At least some of them. I think others really know. They just don't care. They're determined to have what they want to have, and I guess they thought maybe if they were loud enough, then Square would kind of flip the script and change things. See, what the real deal is that they were okay with their they were okay with their ideas, with their fantasies, with their dreams of this whole Clody ship, so long as Square did not do a remake. And reason being is because Aerith was already dead. And because Aerith was already dead, it didn't matter what may have been. You see what I'm saying? It didn't matter if
Mhm.
maybe Cloud and Aerith really were in love with each other. You know what I'm saying? What matters now is that she's not in the picture anymore because she's dead. And that was always the premise that they had used from the very beginning. It was only later that they tried to change the argument and say, well, no, Cloud and Tifa have always been in love with each other. When the ship first gained traction, their primary argument was that the reason Cloud and Tifa got together in the first place was that they were able to rekindle their love for each other that they had when they were kids in the aftermath of Aerith having died. Meaning that they were even acknowledging that might never have happened if Aerith had not died. But they were okay with it because Aerith was dead. So Aerith wasn't coming back. Aerith was not going to ever be in the picture. What diluted that and allowed them to slip in there and change that and say that all along Cloud was never in love with Aerith and Aerith was never in love with Cloud was the introduction of Crisis Core. Crisis Core
Yeah.
allowed a new narrative where they could make the argument now that there was never a love relationship between Cloud and Aerith in OG. That it was all based on their false identity, Cloud's false identity with Zach, and Aerith still kind of lingering and hanging on to the idea of her getting back together with Zach, all because of the way they portrayed the dynamic of that relationship um, between Cloud and Zach in that game. Which really, to be quite frank, if you really thoroughly play that game and you really pay attention to it, yes, they have a few endearing moments, but for the most part, I was never really satisfied with what I saw in that game. I was actually kind of turned off by it because for the most
Mhm.
part, Zach was showboating for the most part.
Yeah,
You
I
know, he
think
was
we'll
showing
have
off.
an analysis on
Yeah.
Crisis Core at a different time. So sorry,
Right.
Jason, I don't want to admonish
Oh
you
no,
or
that's all right.
anything like that, but I would like to stay on topic
No, no, no.
for
Yeah, no, no.
yeah.
What I was really getting at was
Uh-huh.
that this is where Clodies were able to introduce their ideas of why Cloud and Tifa were always supposed to be the canon couple. Like
Mhm.
as I was saying, I think it was before you step back in, I was saying that this all started at the end of OG because Aerith was dead. They were able to make the argument that because Aerith was dead, Cloud and Tifa were allowed at that point to rekindle their
No, no,
so-called love
I
that they
get
had when
that
they were child
part of the
friends.
argument. I just don't think going into a deep analysis of Zach's part of the Crisis Core and maybe even Zareth is relevant right now to the
Right.
whole Ever Crisis stuff.
Yeah, it really isn't. But moving on to the third tweet, we have from at Lunar Tifa. Giving Tifa a male character's look with just a slightly altered version of their outfit only reinforces the idea that Tifa is masculine, a problem we already see in some ships and fan art, when in reality, Tifa is very feminine, even if she's not a white mage or wears a dress.
Tifa wears a mini skirt
I
and a crop top,
mhm.
or that
Does
shows off
anybody
her
have that?
boobies. So,
Does anybody have that image of Tifa for the Ever Crisis crossover?
uh,
The one they're doing for six?
Yeah,
yeah, I can DM it to you real fast, Jason. Just
sure.
give me a second, real fast.
What I seem to think is even if they given her a male one, she does kind of fight male style, okay? With your fists and
Mhm.
stuff, that's very masculine. I'm not saying women can't be fighters, and there's anything wrong with a. I don't call. I'm not calling her masculine, but her skill is obviously in most cases males are stronger than females. Not in every. Not talking everybody, but to fight with your hands
But I thought that's what they liked
is a
about her is that
masculine
she's a monk
skill.
and that she's
And I'm not putting that
badass.
down. That's what I mean. So I'm
Mhm.
confused confused
wrong
as
with
to why they
what,
would
what's
decide
You
wrong with the
that.
literally
picture?
have an account called Tifa the Monk.
Yeah, I
Okay,
don't understand
I
why
think
there's some
this
negative connotation about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there really isn't.
I think this is a case where it's not the image that they're actually complaining about. Correct me if I'm wrong. The original character was in fact a guy, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's really their argument. Again, this has all got to do with the way that they feel that Tifa has been slighted. Okay, really, all of this is really going to the fact that they wanted Tifa to be Celeste because they wanted uh, Tifa and Cloud to be together. That's really what this is all predicated on. So they were going to have an issue with any. They really going to have an issue with any character that they placed Tifa in if it wasn't the character that put her directly with Cloud as a
Correct. I feel
romantic love
like
interest.
in a situation where, in an alternate universe where Tifa is cast as Terra, and let's say Cloud is Locke and that Aerith is Celeste, they would have still had a problem with that for some reason. They just would have
Right,
stated it's as somewhere else. They would have
Mhm.
reconstructed whatever their argument would be, even if they had gotten what they
right,
wanted in terms of Square Enix uplifting her importance in the narrative by casting her as
right.
whoever, right? Um,
Because looking at the image right now, the image, the clothing in terms of the color schemes are the same as the original character, but it is very
it,
much feminine
yeah,
for Tifa to be wearing. There's
it
nothing
makes her
really
look really good.
masculine
I think
about
it
what she's wearing.
complements
So
her
they're just
her very well.
right.
Thank
So
you. And that she's very Tomb Raider-ish in this outfit, and I'm a huge Tomb Raider. Classic Tomb Raider. Don't like the bows, sorry. But, she's feminine still, even though Lara Croft is kind of masculine in a way, but it's not in a bad way because she still has her femininity to her too as well. I don't know
Yeah, I mean,
what
in
the
my
issue
opinion, I
is
it's
with
think
got
this
this
nothing.
one.
post is
It has nothing
very
to do with that.
misogynistic. I wouldn't call anything either masculine or feminine in terms of abilities, weapons, that the fact that Tifa is a fighter and not a mage. Like, I don't really subscribe to that idea that anything can be categorized in one binary or another, especially in
Mhm.
terms of clothing, right? It's just that Tifa is female. She is feminine. She does have these wiles about her, and that's it. And she's also just a badass in what she can
Yeah.
do. Like she is like kind of the
Right,
brawler
You
type,
can
and
be both.
there's nothing
Yeah.
masculine
right.
about that. It's just
If the character, if the character that they modeled her after was a female, they would have still tried to cherry pick,
exactly,
find something to be
exactly.
Yeah.
angry
That's
about.
Yeah.
exactly what I
They just
feel.
got lucky on this one because the original character
Yeah.
happened to be a guy. So it just simply gave
Hmm.
them
But they're hiding behind this argument is that what
There's
they're
nothing
really
valid
angry
about it,
is sorry.
and like this is a common thing that people do when they know on some level that the argument they make is nonsensical. They try to make it sound like they're arguing not in the name of their own selfish desires, but instead about some bigger
Mhm.
grand issue to make it sound
right.
like they have the moral
Yeah.
high ground. Like for example, Fox. Like for example, Fox. A lot of people, usually the same people that hated the prequels, try to argue that they should release the original versions of the original trilogy in the name of film preservation,
Hmm.
but they often stop it and don't care. Act, is selfish. That's not how art works.
Hmm.
Yeah, they just want to preserve what it is that they wanted for her. And it's really not even about her looks. It's simply
Exactly.
about who he's paired with. They want her paired with Cloud. Her character to be any character that can put her in the arena with Cloud as a love interest. Just like I'll go back to what Fox just said. If they had given her Terra
Anything.
and they had made Era Celeste, they would even more heated because they know specifically that Celeste was a love interest for Locke, and that would absolutely inflame them. Okay, so it doesn't really matter what they put her in. What matters is that their frustration is that she's not getting the character that they want her to get, that pairs her with Cloud. That's what this is all about. Remember, they went absolutely nuts, during the Final Fantasy IX crossover because Aerith got what is her name? Oh my god, I can't.
Garnet.
Got
Garnet.
Garnet. Okay, now everybody made the argument. She looks. Remember the argument they kept making? She looks nothing like Garnet. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And it didn't matter that she didn't characteristically look
Yeah, it's all
and have the
about the
same
role
features of
they
Garnet. What
serve in
mattered
the
is that
story.
Garnet was a mage. She had magic. Right, it's the role that they serve in the story, and she still fit the role because she was a woman of magic, okay? And just as Aerith is a woman of magic, and of course, Zidane being the main character, Cloud being the main character. So they were always going to do it that way. That's really what this really comes down to. And they just can't accept that, and that's why they're angry because they want Tifa to get that position that's going to pair her with Cloud. That's what they're determined. They're desperate on any level to pair Tifa with Cloud and have a bona fide argument to say that see, Cloud and Tifa are canon. That's really what this comes down to. What this really comes down to is they want to be able to say with justification and emphatically that Cloud and Tifa are canon, and they can't do it because SE won't give them anything that allows them to do that. They are cherry picking different elements and different things, and then just when they think they've got something, like for example, they were all gung ho when they thought they had the kiss on the Skywheel, but then when the truth got out, what it really was, it blew all that to pieces, and now they're dissatisfied with it. Okay, they're dissatisfied with it, and then when they see all the scenes that Cloud and Aerith actually get, they're even more angry. I mean, the stuff that they were saying about Square Enix and about it was nothing but a love
I mean, I think
fest
what's really the
between
kicker
Cloud
here
and
is
Aerith
that
the whole game,
in the
and it
trailer
sickened them. Like,
you do
remember,
have Cloud and Tifa interacting with each other in the trailer, and there's at least going to be a moment or two, I don't know how many, like throughout the event, where Cloud and Tifa are just by themselves interacting. And that's what they want from their
right,
ship, right? Like they want moments alone between Cloud and Tifa. And the trailer presented just that. Like Aerith's eventually going to join the fold, but she was introduced alongside Angeal's character, not Cloud.
right. But that's the problem though. They
Hmm.
wanted her introduced with Cloud. Think about this, and you got to
No, but
admit that
that's what happens in
Square's
the
been
trailer.
really clever about this.
Tifa does get introduced with Cloud.
Well, and I think that that would have worked for them, and they would have been happy with that
Hmm.
if her character was a character that was actually paired in the story.
Yeah, they
Meaning
took away
that
the
okay, yeah,
romantic
they got
context
to
of any interaction that Cloud
right,
and Tifa would have had.
exactly. That's exactly, and that's what they're angry about. They wanted the context. They wanted to be able to say, "See, Celeste is." I mean, because think about this for a second. Think about this for a minute. Um, when they were angry that they did it with the Final Fantasy IX crossover, their primary argument was that Garnet looked nothing like Aerith. That Tifa, in her physical characteristics, looked more like a Garnet type, and so they didn't understand why they didn't put Tifa
Yeah, I mean, long
as
before that
Garnet.
event even
But the
happened,
only
they've been
reason they were
saying for
making
years
that
that
argument
Garnet was more of a more looked more like Tifa, and that's why that
exactly
that character was probably modeled after Tifa. But the devs went and said,
right.
nope, nope, nope.
Right. They said no. They said no. She is a mage. We're
Hmm.
gonna stick with the themes. You
Main
know,
heroine.
Aerith is a mage, exactly, and that ruined their idea. That ruined their vision. That ruined their dream. And the same thing here. They wanted Tifa to be placed in a character role that makes her a pairing with Cloud. It's not enough that yeah, she might get a scene or two. What matters is that she's not the love interest in the story. And that's what it is that they want. That's why they're mad. And then to add salt to the wound, they're cherry picking this whole idea that they messed up her look because she's got the outfit that the original character had, and the original character just happened to be a guy. That's just them cherry picking it to try to basically make a bigger argument for themselves. When the truth of the matter is, they could have cared less. In fact, if it had been that that
Mm.
character was originally a female and that character was the love interest for Cloud, none of them would be arguing about the outfit that they put her in. No one. They would be perfectly content. Everybody would say, "See, Cloud and Tifa are canon," because they would
Mm.
have known that this was Locke's love interest. You know what I'm saying? So this is their argument has nothing to do with what they're trying to say. They're trying to make a hill of beans out of nothing, and
Yeah, they're
they're
being
doing anything and
super goofy.
right, exactly. They're being goofy. They're being childish, and it's not going to work. And it'll be the next crossover. They'll have something else that they'll be angry at the next crossover. Let them do a Final Fantasy 15 crossover, and they make Luna Freya. Uh, uh, they give that character to Aerith, and
Mm-hmm.
they make Cloud. They
Noctis
make
for
Cloud,
short.
God forbid, Noctis. They will be angry. They will
Oh
be
yeah.
absolutely angry. And then let them make Tifa Iris. They will be so livid. They will be absolutely utterly livid is what they will be. Because remember, in that story, Iris is his childhood friend, but they're not
Yeah.
together. And they would be livid at this. And they will make the argument, Aerith looks nothing like Luna Freya. She's not blonde, so why are they doing this? It's all got to do with just narrative illustrations, and this doesn't fit what it is that they want. So that's why they're making that argument.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%.
She's
Uh, um,
which
Sorry, go ahead.
may I?
Yeah, of course.
Um,
question asked.
what was the name of the girl in 15? The mechanic?
I think that's
The
Cindy.
female fit? Yeah, Cindy. People were also saying on Twitter how hilarious it would be if a crossover with 15 will happen. Tifa will become Cindy.
We can only hope. But I hope she's just not included. Like, you know what? Give Barrett his flowers, give Sid his flowers, Vincent, whoever, even Genesis at this point. I think that those fans would be more appreciative of getting anything at this point over Tifa's fans just getting more Tifa content.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we definitely need more Barrett stuff, and like I pointed this out in a reply to something from Clyburn on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like I don't know how many of you have been keeping up with everything in Ever Crisis, but like so for the Highwind feature, there's treasures that you get that unlock bonuses for your characters.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
There's one that you can level up for each character depending on how many different outfits they have, and the bonus maxes out for each character at 5 outfits. With the
Oh, I
exception of
didn't know that.
with the exception of Angeal, which makes sense for why he doesn't have 5 because he was just added.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Barrett is the only character with less than 5 outfits.
Huh,
Poor Barrett.
true.
As a Barrett fan, we
Yeah,
deserve better.
he deserves love.
Yeah.
Even and you're gonna hate it when I say this. Even fucking Glenn, Matt, and Lucia have more outfits than Barrett.
I
Yeah,
don't know
that's
what the
sad.
hate is with.
Oh, that is sad.
Yeah, I don't know what Square Enix is thinking about when it comes to just Glenn, Matt, and Lucia, because they're nothing characters. I'm sorry, they're really dull and
Mm,
boring and
yeah,
lifeless.
I
Whereas
agree.
Barrett, like he's so much more embedded just into the story. I mean, he's existed long before those other characters, and I feel like there is a fan base for him, and he could potentially just be more profitable if they did anything with him.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there definitely is. Like hell, I still remember back.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, exactly. And like, and like, there definitely is a fan base for him. Like, I still remember from back when people were hoping that the remake would officially become a thing. There were two memes that I saw all the time. One of them were one, they can't remake it because they'd shrink Tifa's chest otherwise, and the other was Barrett better be voiced by Mr. T. Like those were the two big memes that people made of the 7 remake before it was officially announced.
Wow.
So yes, there is a fandom for Barrett. It's just that Square doesn't think it exists for whatever reason.
Yeah, I don't know because I can't say it's totally based on race if they're doing more things with Matt. I don't know. I don't know what it is. There is such a love
Maybe
for Barrett within the fandom.
he's not profitable. Also not as much as Cloud Aerith and the others,
Well, the thing is
probably.
that he's not. If we're comparing um his popularity within the fandom to Cloud, Aerith, Sephiroth, and some other characters,
Mhm.
but compared to Matt, Lucia, and Glenn, he is absolutely more popular. No one I've ever spoken to would
Yeah.
say that they prefer any 3 of those characters over Barrett. And it is embarrassing that there is a
Mhm.
max limit to begin with, let alone Barrett not having as many.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
Square Enix, how dare you?
Barrett literally, again, not counting Angeal, but he's gonna tie Barrett for this number with the upcoming FF6 event because he's Cyan in that.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, not counting Angeal, Barrett is the character with the fewest number of different outfits. Period.
Barrett should have
Yeah.
been Sabine. I'm sorry. It's just Tifa fans are ungrateful and Barrett fans want more and deserve more.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
I've actually heard people say they should have made Barrett Cyan because of the fact that apparently in FF6 Cyan is described as being like a family man.
Oh,
Mhm.
I agree with that for sure. They have a very similar allure as well. But I'm super excited to see Angeal in the upcoming event, and I think Cyan does make a lot of sense for him as well, being that Angeal is also a family man in his own right. Considering we're we're exploring a new part of him and how important his family was to him from just the first, or I guess the second chapter of First Soldier.
Uh, right, and like not to dive too deep into that, but I will say that I do like that they gave us that small episode showing him with his father
Mm-hmm.
because of how that was something that was heavily talked about in Crisis Core. His relationship with his dad and how it molded him,
Mm-hmm.
but we never got to actually see what that was like.
Yeah, I'm glad we're going deeper into First Soldier now that the boring stuff with the boring characters are out of the
Yeah.
way. Thank God, because no one liked Glenn. No one. I mean, people might have liked Matt and Lucia, but it was boring. I'm just sorry. It
Yeah,
was
and
such a boring mess.
I don't like them.
and like
Yeah.
this is even more mind-boggling because to remind you from the Ultimania, Nomura confirmed that Glenn was written for Rebirth first and First Soldier second, meaning that he apparently thought this character would have been that popular or interesting to people.
Mistakes were made.
Yeah.
The Jar Jar Binks
Yeah.
effect.
Right.
Right.
I don't know. I think that's definitely something we could go into a future episode is talking about First Soldier, the first and second chapters or more chapters to come for sure. But I have things to say about Glenn that aren't flattering. But Matt and Lucia, I don't hate them, but I don't think they deserve more aesthetically pleasing clothes than poor Barrett. Because I love Barrett to death. I think
Yeah.
he is he, he's such a heart to the main group, and I think it's a
Definitely.
shame the way he's being treated in Ever Crisis.
Mhm.
Completely agree. I've always felt, even back when I first played the original game, I've always felt that that outside of the Cloud and Aerith dynamic, that Barrett was really like the moral center of the party. Like again,
Yeah.
Oh.
outside of Cloud and Aerith.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Yeah,
I
outside
agree
of
with
those two,
that.
I always felt like yeah, outside of those two, outside of the Cleric dynamic, I felt that Barrett was really what kept them from stooping to Shinra or Sephiroth's level. So to see him treated like this, it's to say it's insulting is an understatement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wanted him to have another choice besides the sailor outfit in Rebirth. I felt like he needed a beach wear.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
know a lot of people were really excited to see
Mhm.
Sailor Bear, but I agree that they could have offered maybe an alternative sailor costume.
Yeah,
I'm
But
his
really
red hair cute.
I'm really surprised that they didn't give him a beach event during the Ever Crisis revisit. When they when they returned to the beach event early this year.
right.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah, there's just a lot of
like they
missed
went out there.
opportunities. I mean, they didn't give him anything with the Bahamut event, even though you have the outfit already there in Rebirth.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah,
He
right, right, right.
awesome.
That's right, the
That would have
Loveless
been
fight.
perfect.
Yeah.
And
So
the sailor suit looks hot.
yeah, I
Like
mean,
it's hot.
Barrett
Like
in
it's
general, he's
hot.
just a very handsome character, but they want to focus on all of the soft boys for Ever Crisis, all of the ones who have these very effeminate features, like Cloud and Sephiroth, and now in
And
Jill.
Zack.
But whereas Barrett
I
Mhm.
was
has this very gruffness to him, and I don't know that the devs like to focus on that. I don't think that they realize that that Barrett is handsome.
uh, no, I think that might be part of it, no, completely agree on the Angeal thing as well, because like I remember seeing this one tweet from Callie back when they showed off his full design, and she literally said something like, "Why does he look like a boy band heartthrob?"
He does, but
Yeah, I
they're
don't
all
care
starting
for
to have like that same featurey kind of look where they all look like Cloud, and it's getting on my nerves. And also as an NGL like fangirl, like long before the his younger self was ever came out, I like that he looked masculine, that he was older,
very.
that
Mm-hmm.
that his chin was on the flatter side and not the more angular side like it is now. Like I don't know, it's getting on my nerves.
And the
On
hair.
the same face syndrome for everyone, and yeah, I don't know. I've always loved Angio. I've always loved Barrett as well, and I don't think there's anything wrong with appreciating more obviously male looking types. No offense to Cloud,
Mm-hmm.
but he a little effeminate.
He's a pretty boy.
Yeah, I love Cloud.
Yeah,
Well,
he's
well,
definitely
there
a
is a
pretty boy.
well, there is a reason Corneo didn't suspect a thing.
Mm-hmm. And I think that does work with
Yeah.
Barrett,
Right.
but it's just
I mean,
like he and Zach, he and Matt, he and Rufus, like they all just have the same exact features, like, and it's making it's giving generic at this point. Like I do wish the
True.
devs would try a little bit harder to differentiate these characters' expressions and facial features outside of Cloud. Even though I get it, it's very marketable. These boys are very pretty, but Angeal and Barrett are also pretty in their own way.
Mhm.
I think it would
I
at
think
least.
that I think Barrett is a very handsome guy. I think that the problem is I don't know if they really know what to do with him outside of his plot because he's the type of character because of his harsh and brash behavior, and the way that he handles Avalanche. You don't really get to see enough of the softer side of him when he's not with Marlene. I think that
Mhm.
how you do this is go into some more background stories from him,
Hmm.
uh, show the relationship between Cloud and Barrett, and as they're getting better, so you can see a lot more of that softer side of him, and then have more opportunities where maybe he gets back to Marlene, so that you can see that about him. Because what happens is that it looks off because he's trying to be, the strong arm, the iron that they need, while they're going out there on this adventure. And so to try to sort of switch that up, just on a whim, if you don't have the context to do it, I think that in a lot of ways they're looking at that as not really quite sure how to go about it. But what you have to do is just kind of mix the story up a little bit and just allow for some storytelling for him specifically, so that you can start to tap into that other side. I think they do it a little bit more in Rebirth, in the way that they start developing the friendship between Cloud and Barrett, but they could have gone a little further than that. Maybe they will in part three, because there is another layer to Barrett that is a little bit more compassionate, that is a little more loving and kind, like a big teddy bear. When you peel those
Mhm.
layers back,
Yeah.
and then
I
and one of the
absolutely agree.
things that
I
I
think
really learned,
everything they've done with him in Rebirth makes absolute sense. I think they've handled
absolutely,
Yeah.
him very well over there, but in Ever
yeah, I
Crisis,
think that
I do not appreciate how he's constantly being steamrolled for other characters who aren't on his level. I guess is the nicest way I can say it. Like he's definitely more relevant than Matt, than Glenn, than Lucia, and even more than Angel. But it just makes me angry as a Barrett fan.
Mhm.
right, and I can understand that.
But yeah, so next tweet though, um, because I'm we're gonna have to start wrapping it up here. So
Okay.
please
Well,
ask Square Enix and all these other official accounts pass Tifa's rights to another company or person who truly values her as she deserves. And I agree. Get Tifa away. Just hate her. Yep, get her away. She doesn't serve any purpose here. Don't like her. She's just a plot device. Go away, Tifa.
don't get me wrong. I'd like that to happen as well, but this one probably cracked me up the most when I saw it, because it's like, because it's like,
Yeah.
because like, do these people think that it's like the rights to Avengers or X-Men or something, where they can give away trademarks to individual characters?
Probably, yeah.
That's probably exactly
That
what they
there,
think. I don't understand. It's just like, okay, well, Cloud and Tifa are never going to be a thing, right? If she gets passed somewhere else.
this individual is
Disrespectful again.
absolutely lying to themselves and is just trying to get clicks.
Hmm.
There's I don't know if you guys remember the movie The Count of Monte Cristo,
Uh-huh.
Heard
and
of it, never seen it.
remember the
Me
scene.
neither.
Well, there's a scene at the very end when um the Count Mondego has lost everything. Count of Monte Cristo has toppled his entire regime down. He's flat broke, and now he's being charged with murder. He's basically on the run, and he thinks that he's, scammed the Count of Monte Cristo out of a significant amount of gold, only to find out that he was set up and there's nothing in there but a pawn, indicating that it's your move. And at the very end, when he discovers, when it's revealed to the Count that Mondego's son isn't even his, it actually belongs to Montez, and he finally decides to leave just before shooting his love interest. Now, as he's riding off, essentially having gotten away, he stops about halfway. He turns around and he starts screaming out the Count's name, Montez, Edmund Montez. And when he steps out, he says, I could never live in a world in which you have everything and I have nothing. That's what this situation really is, and what they're saying. They would not even be satisfied if the rights to Tifa went to another gaming company. Because essentially what she would become is an independent character with an independent story arc that was completely independent of Cloud, and that is not what they want. I don't care what they say. That's what you and I want. That's what we want. We want to see an independent character arc for her. You know what I'm saying? That's independent of Cloud because we've gotten tired of the dynamic of her just being totally, completely dependent on him, that she can't seem to focus or think straight without him being in the scenario. But that's not really what they want. They want her with Cloud. So they would never genuinely be satisfied if the rights got sent to another gaming company and she ended up on
She would
her
stop
own
making
game.
money.
You know, say again.
She would stop making money. You know, they wouldn't
Exactly, she would
ever.
stop making
Well,
money for one.
they don't
They
spend
would even
money on her
they,
now, but it would be even worse.
exactly
You know, she would just
right. They would
cease to
completely
be.
lose. They would completely lose interest in her, and it would be they would be screaming even louder if Square did something like that because that's not what they want. They want Cloud and Tifa together, and they want that ship for themselves, and they want Square to comply. So this is just them howling at the moon just to try to make some noise, knowing good and well if Square Enix replied and said, "Okay, in fact, we've got a gaming company that we're considering sending her off to," they would come back and say, "We can't believe they're just going to write Tifa off like that. After all these decades, of her being a significant part in the Final Fantasy VII story, how could they do that?" That's what they would do if Square was to actually oblige. That's what they would do. And the proof of
Mhm.
that is that she's already had cameo roles and other things, and they're dissatisfied with it because she doesn't have the position with Cloud that they want her to have. You know what I'm saying? In fact, in just about every cameo role that she's played in, and Cloud was in it too. Cloud was trying to get away from her. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
Or they were
they're not
beating
they're
each
not going to
other
be
up.
satisfied. Right, exactly. So
Yeah.
they're never going to be satisfied with that. They can say it all they want to. This person is just, you could probably say that you could attribute this to just pissing in the wind, is what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing with this little rant of theirs, just to get some people to get their blood a boiling and some clicks. But at the end of the day, they would never ever give up Tifa and stand for her being removed from Final Fantasy VII altogether. They would absolutely go ballistic if that was to happen. That would be easy. If Square could do that and write her out, just imagine if the ending for Final Fantasy VII, this remake project, ends with some distant years from now. They show the lives of everybody, and Tifa is living an independent life on her own. Maybe she's opened up a dojo and she's teaching the next generation of martial artists, and she's happy and she's content with her life. You know what I'm saying? But it has nothing to
Mhm.
do with Cloud. They would be sick about it. They would absolutely be utterly. We'd love that. We would absolutely love
Mhm.
that. They'd be sick about it. They would be absolutely honestly sick about it, and they would say that it was disrespecting, that that's all they see her as is just this monk, and it's
Mhm.
disrespectful to Tifa because they don't want her. She could be on a motorbike. You know what I'm saying? Let her. I can see. Let's say they even do this. That Cloud gives her Fenrir. He's settling down with Aerith. He doesn't need it anymore. What it represents to him, he doesn't need it anymore. And she still has journeys ahead of her. You know what I'm saying? Now that she's taking on more of a lead independent role, she takes Fenrir, and the next scene that you see is her riding off into the sunset on Fenrir, going to face her next big adventure. They would not be happy with that. They wouldn't be happy
Mhm.
with that. They would be absolutely angry and livid with that because again, it doesn't fit the narrative that they want. So this is just another one of those rants that's just howling at the moon. Just to what this is really meant to do is just to express their dissatisfaction with what they're currently doing with Tifa. That's what that is. They don't really mean any of what they
100%.
said here. That's all this is. This is just their way, in sarcastic form to express their frustration and satisfaction with what they're getting from Square. And that's just, well, if that's how you're going to do it, why don't you just pass her off to someone else that's going to truly value her? Yeah, right. You don't really mean that. You're just venting. You know what I'm saying? So just shut up. just stop.
Yeah.
That's basically how I would attribute that to is that because they know good well if Square acquiesced, they would be stunned. They absolutely would be stunned, and the whole Clody community would have a nervous breakdown, and we
Mhm.
would be parading through the streets with victory flags.
Mm-hmm. And for this final one, we've got David Dale and at the Cosmo Canyon, aka Final Heaven, in a little bit of a discussion. CY, do you mind reading it for us?
Uh, okay, sure thing. The discussion starts with David Dale saying, "Clearly, SE wants to drive us away from Ever Crisis because we want her as Celis and not Sabin. Final Heaven. They didn't even try with this outfit. They could have at least gave it more thought. Jeez." David Dale. Think Najima-san is furious? Final Heaven. I would be if I were him, TBH. David Dale. I'm not happy with the decision with Square Enix.
First of all, I don't think Nojima cares.
Yeah.
It's not like
No,
we
he
know
doesn't.
what's going to happen in the story as of this recording. I mean, it could be possible that Tifa actually plays a very big role in the event that's about to happen. Hard to say without having played it, and it'll probably be another two
Could
parter.
be, yeah.
Um, but also this isn't a writing decision. I don't know why Nojima would care. It's just aesthetics. It's just clothes at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Like, granted, the implications are there, but uh, Nojima himself has said that Tifa and Aerith's roles are not actually equal to each other. And this is
Yeah.
just another delusion that they tell themselves that Aerith and Tifa either should be equal to each other, or Tifa at the end of the day is somehow more important than Aerith is, at least to Cloud.
Mhm.
And she's not. You know, it's just like you can have your
It's
opinion on
really
whether
not.
or not she is a heroine or secondary to Aerith, but at the end of the day, she's never going to be Aerith's equal in terms of the overall narrative or even to Cloud.
Yeah. Agree.
And that on that notion, just a little quick point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you guys, and you're entitled to your opinion, but I've never really felt like it was fair to put Tifa in the category of a heroine. There's three major points as to the reason why I never felt that. Point number
Mhm.
one, as a heroine, you have to put yourself in the position of being a hero. And that means either A, leading people to something, towards something, being a beacon that
Mhm.
people follow, okay, and leading is number one. She never actually does that. In fact, when she's given the opportunity to do it, she abandons it and decides that I don't even
Yeah.
care what happens to the rest of the world. I'm just not leaving Cloud's side. That's not a heroine. I'm sorry.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, Number two, and is sacrifice. Okay, willing to
Mhm.
actually make a sacrifice for those that matter the most. Again, she doesn't make a sacrifice, she sacrifices Cloud for her own pride, okay? And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
almost gets him killed. Okay, so I just feel like those couple of elements, um, to me, don't qualify her, in my opinion, of her being a heroine. At best, she is a support, uh, uh,
Mhm.
uh, uh, a model of support at a moment in which Cloud is trying to find himself. She's the buffer for which he's able to validate his existence because she can corroborate certain events that they both share based on their childhood. Um,
And if even that, I don't even know if I would also just call her support a lot of the time. Like, she is a supporting character in the archetype of that definition, if you will.
right,
But I think there are so many points throughout OG, throughout Remake and Rebirth and Advent Children and just the general compilation where she's not supportive. Um,
right,
Even
and
in
I agree
Advent
with. I would
Children, where
Mhm.
she does
completely
play
agree
a
with you.
bigger role, at the end of the day, who does she save? Who does she actually help? I mean, she tries to with Marlene in the church when Laws comes in, but she does
Right,
ultimately fail. And when she wakes up from
right,
being KO'd,
Mhm.
it's Cloud for some reason who has to go off and find Marlene, not
right,
Tifa. And
Mhm.
and
there's no proper reason within the story why Tifa doesn't go.
Right. There's no consistency with her in any type of a role that you could claim that she takes up the role as a heroine.
Yeah,
She's not
she's just
consistent
a
enough for
character
that.
that is there, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. She's an emotional character that is the way I feel it is she's trying to navigate her way through an array of emotions that center around her infatuation with Cloud.
Mhm.
And she inserts herself as this model of strength, but it's a false model of strength. It's really her trying to live up to something because she wants Cloud to take notice of her, and it's not working. And all too many times when it doesn't work, she resorts back to this level of frustration with him because it doesn't work, which makes her act out who she really is rather than the heroine. I mean, like I said, the best example was when they needed her to help find the huge materia, and her response was, "No, I don't care about the
Mhm.
Mhm.
world. I don't care about the planet." Okay,
Mhm.
that was like, really, what? You don't care about the planet because of what's happening to Cloud, and he's definitely a dead man if you guys don't win this thing.
Like,
You know
yeah,
what I'm
we're
saying? You
all
can't.
dead. If like, what did Aerith die for? If you're not
Exactly.
gonna take on the mantle of the heroine that everyone says that you are, you know what I mean?
Right.
But
Exactly.
then you
So I.
also, I don't know, there are so many moments we could point to, and maybe we will in future podcasts, but one of them, in my opinion, is in the first part of Remake, where she follows Cloud up to the plate just before it's about to fall, and she nearly falls to her death, and Cloud has to catch her. And he kind of admonishes her, like, I told you to stay behind. And she says, it's just like, well, I'm just as crazy as you are, so get over it. I'm not going anywhere. But it's a really
Right.
awkward scenario
Mhm.
because he had to save her. Like, she's not, he's just giving, she is just giving him more work and someone else to protect and look after above
Exactly. Exactly.
saving the civilians and getting them evacuated and even trying to distract the Turks.
Exactly. Because her she tried under she went under the guise of trying to help out, but the truth of the matter is that really wasn't it. She really went. Her motivation was really to follow Cloud. That's really what it was. It wasn't that because trust me, I guarantee you, if Cloud had stayed down at the down below to help evacuate the town people, she would not have told him, "I can't stay here with you. I got to go up there and do something." She
Mm-hmm.
would not have done that. She would have stayed by his side, would have helped him evacuate the sector. No, she ran up there because she wanted to be with him, and that's one. And that's you bring up an excellent example, Fox, because I always have been very very angry with her about this because one, she left. Remember how she was thinking about the plate when they were going in chapter 11 when they're going through the graveyard, and then
Mm-hmm.
she's seeing these images of Marlene because she's being taunted by that ghost. They made
Mhm.
it appear as if she really was concerned about Marlene, but then as soon as Cloud left the picture and told her to help get the people out of the sector, she can't even do that. She sticks around, and you can tell the disappointment in Era's face when she tells her you have to follow your heart. She knows that's not really what Tifa should be doing. She knows that Tifa should be sticking by trying to help evacuate the townsfolk. But she knows that she's not going to do it, so she goes ahead and she's okay. She's like, okay, you got to follow your heart and go ahead and do what you got to do. But the truth of the matter is that she left Marlene to essentially a stranger that you just
Mhm.
met so you could go play with Cloud. And I have a problem with that. And the thing is that one of the biggest reasons why I always had an issue with that is that that's the number one reason why Aerith got caught in the first
Yeah.
place is because you sent her to go get Marlene rather than you going to do it, even though you've been the one who's been the mother figure for Marlene all this time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
And
mean, up until
instead,
that
and
point,
when the
Aerith
moment mattered,
hadn't met Marlene yet. and
No, she had
it
not
would
met
have been this
Marlene
really
yet at
awkward
all.
ordeal. I mean, there's a big chance that Marlene wouldn't have gone with Aerith because a she's a stranger and there's bombing outside, and
Right.
Mhm.
I think it would have been easier for Tifa to go. It's just like, hey, we gotta go. You know, this is serious. We gotta evacuate. I think Marlene wouldn't have stopped to question it.
Right. Exactly. If
Mhm.
it wasn't for her ability to be able to share that moment that she shared with her, and something about her, and I'm pretty sure because of her being a Cetra, she gives off an aura that's probably calming to people that makes people feel like they can trust her. If it wasn't that, you're probably right because think about that. She immediately ran from Cloud the first day she saw Cloud. My
Mhm.
dad don't talk to strangers. So what was
Yeah.
different about Aerith? No, it was just the way that Aerith, because of who Aerith is, and she has a magnetism about herself that you just feel like you can trust her. And then, of course, once she hugged her, she got that vision, and then things changed. Now she sees who she really is, and she saw that future, and it made her akin to Aerith. But Tifa had no way of knowing that. So essentially, she took a gamble on a stranger that she just met, all because she couldn't bring herself to be the one to do it because she wanted to go race up there with Cloud. I could even have
Mhm.
accepted her running up there if she had ran ahead of Cloud, considering the fact Barrett was already up there and Avalanche was already up there. I could have
Mm-hmm.
even seen if Cloud was did something like we need to help evacuate. The we need to help evacuate these people out of Sector 7, and then she looked up and saw Biggs fall, and she knows that her people up there. She knows Jesse's up there, who's her best friend. She knows that Biggs is up there. She knows that Barrett's up there, and then she suddenly runs off and says, "I'm sorry, Cloud. I got to do something."
Yeah, I
That
think
would
that would have been
actually have made
perfectly
more
acceptable.
sense.
Or
Mhm.
you could have
That would have been perfect.
easily
Except
utilized the whispers. You know, have Tifa make a decision she
right,
didn't make before in the OG, but then they have to force
right,
her up the plate.
exactly. But no, instead she agrees to stay. And then the idea of seeing Cloud run up there is what propagated her to go ahead and go chase after him. And you can tell by the way when she finds him, and like you said, she puts him actually in a bigger awkward position. Because now he's got to look after her to make sure that she's okay. And the very first thing, the stairwell is collapsing. He's got to save her. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
she didn't do anything to add any help to that situation. You know what I'm saying? And then after the plate's getting ready to blow, she just completely despairs and is just lying there on the ground as if
Yeah,
it's
wasting
hopeless. We've
precious
lost.
seconds.
Right, exactly. Wasting precious time. And now Cloud's got to go pick her up, like, snap out of it. We got to get out of here. You know what I mean? So, no, she really hurt the team doing that. And it was all because of Cloud that she ends up doing that. So, like I said, I just don't feel. I understand why they say, heroin, because after Era's death, she takes the position of the lead lady since she's the only one left technically at that point. So she's the lead lady, and you can sort of say in that regard, that's a heroine role, I guess you could say. And of course, you've got the testimony of the developers that say that they designed her to be a support for Cloud in the aftermath of Era's death in the first place. But beyond that, I've never seen anything about her throughout OG and throughout Advent Children as well as Remake that really defines her as someone that could be labeled a heroine. So I feel like she's yet to actually achieve that. She's yet to do anything to achieve that. So it'd be nice if they did do that, and give her something of that nature or caliber. But she hasn't done that yet. And
I mean,
this
I feel
year,
at this
uh,
point, especially in Rebirth, Yuffie has propagated more herself to that role. I mean, you have her saving the main crew just in time on the beach, right? When she comes up with
right.
that
Mhm.
shadow clone army of Johnny, and she helps
Yep,
them.
yep,
Mhm.
She has her own side story in the original game between her and her dad, and she has all this stuff going on in Wu Tai,
right,
and she's more helpful in general than
right.
Tifa was, and that's
I agree.
knowing that
Mhm.
she is a thief, and that there are some things that she does that
Yeah.
puts the crew in trouble.
Right. I agree.
So, mm, I have a lot of thoughts on Tifa. That might be saved for later. We've got years to come of this, but
Right.
I feel that in terms of Ever Crisis, she got what she deserved, and it's not even anything bad. I mean, uh,
Yeah.
the character she got cast as is awesome. Her outfit is awesome. There's nothing masculine about it. It's just it is what
Mhm.
it is, and it looks nice on her. You know?
Right.
Very, that's
You,
so pretty.
it's really funny that we actually find ourselves in the position of defending Tifa more so than they do. They
Yeah, it's so
defend the
funny.
ship. They defend the ship, or they argue their ship.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
Mhm.
actually us that actually defend Tifa because when they don't get what they want, they really have a very ugly view of her when they don't get
Mhm.
what they want. And I
Which, by
find
the
it
way, I think
more than.
just to interject right here, I'm so sorry, Jason. Is that I think Ever Crisis
No, go
has
ahead.
actually done a really good job with Tifa in these side events, where she
Yeah.
is acting more independent of Cloud, and you see a closer relationship between her and Aerith, and her and Barrett, and her and other people. And she's also very kind to Cloud as well. And there is like this genuine
Right.
support there for all of these other people. Like she's not as I would say egocentric. She does have a little more
Right.
Mhm.
compassion, a little more consideration, and I think that's the Tifa that we've needed for a while. Like there are moments where she regresses, and that's fine. She's allowed to have her flaws, but I think Ever Crisis has tapped into that perfect balance.
Right.
Mhm. Well, I think we all want her to grow. So I agree with
Yeah.
you that we want the growth. I want to see her come out to with the truth.
Yeah,
To
I don't want
not
to see her titties like bouncing around in this like super like
yeah.
pornographic outfit. I want to see her, dressed not necessarily modestly, but something that is closer to what a fighter would wear, like she is in this current outfit that she's wearing, and something that still accentuates her femininity, but not so much that it borders on. I don't know how to say it nicely, but um where she's showing more skin, I suppose, is the best way that I can put it. And there's still a lot of skin being shown in that outfit, and I don't see necessarily anything wrong with it. But it's not as fan servicey, I guess, and that it's nice to see that where she's being treated a little more seriously by the developers.
Right.
Mhm. Agree.
So yeah, I think Ever Crisis, and I think the developers actually did her a lot of justice here, maybe more than I think she deserves as a character compared to remake, rebirth, and just Advent Children. I think she's kind of a blah character, but as Ever Crisis goes, I think
Mhm.
she's actually really solid, and I think her flaws suit her well there. And it's not like she ever means to be malicious, but the fact that they've had conversations, her and Cloud, about their childhood, and she's not understanding that Cloud is uncomfortable when that topic is brought up is interesting.
Right.
It
Mhm.
seems less she's in her own world, but that she's just not getting it.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
isn't. She sees their history through a very different set of lenses. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I actually really appreciated that scene in Rebirth where she was bringing it up, and Cloud had to check her and be like, "That's really what you thought? Like, wow, like you don't even you never even paid attention to even know how I was really feeling,
Mhm.
and she even had to admit she didn't know him as well as she thought that she wanted to believe she did, because all this time she romanticized this idea of him isolating himself because that's what he wanted. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how self-absorbed do you got to be to without getting to know someone to believe that they were doing that because that's what they wanted? I
Yeah, she
mean,
definitely looks through her own past and projects it onto Cloud as well with just rose colored glasses is just, and that's sad because I think what you see throughout a lot of Rebirth is that they aren't on the same page on how they view their memories, and it's hard for her to contend with that. And you have places like Dissidia, for example, where she does try to bring up her past, and Cloud's just like, I don't want to talk about it. But
Right.
for
Mhm.
instance, it's just like with Brian, for instance, like that's her dad. That is the man who raised Tifa to be what she is, and she loves him, of course. But Cloud's gonna have a totally different experience because that is the man who ostracized him, who told these boys and encouraged these boys to be mean to him and to not ever come near
Nobody,
his daughter.
yeah, nobody wants him as a father-in-law for Cloud. Nobody,
Yeah. I
nobody.
Right.
mean, he's dead.
No.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I mean, she would still want to talk about her father, and it would just doesn't work.
Yeah, like
It
she
doesn't
has. I'm
work.
sure she has a lot of beautiful memories of her father, but when she tries to reminisce with Cloud about Brian, he clams up.
That's
yeah,
bad. Yeah,
he
yeah.
definitely
Mhm.
clams up. That's not a. I mean, what? What do you expect from the poor
Yeah,
boy? I
like
mean,
Brian was a bully to Cloud. Like let's just call a spade a spade.
Mhm,
Brian went
mhm,
off on Cloud in a way that made him feel lower than dirt. I mean, it made him feel so small and insignificant because not only did you put the blame on him for her accident, you accused him of trying to kill her. Okay,
mhm,
essentially by the rhetoric that you spat, that
Yeah,
he was somehow trying to inadvertently kill her with his recklessness. That's pretty bad,
and he
and
rallied
then
these
saying to
other
stay
two
there.
young boys to act the same way, to maltreat Cloud. And he was the adult in that situation, and he could have easily been like, even if he had said, I still don't want you hanging around my daughter because of this and that, because you're a danger, there was no reason to rope in the entire town, much less to rope in these two other boys who were still learning as well. Like fuck those other three boys. But he was the adult in that situation, and it was his responsibility to be like, don't mistreat Cloud.
Right,
mhm.
Obviously, like you don't have to go out of your way to bully him. Just kindly keep him away from my daughter. Don't get into fights with him. But
right.
fuck Brian. I don't know. Him and his stupid mustache. But at the end of the day, like I can't blame Tifa for having fond memories of her father, but I also can't blame Cloud
Yeah.
for not.
Right, exactly,
Like
He
how do
holds
you
a
exactly.
ever
lot more.
talk about that person? You know, like
Right,
they play two very different roles in Cloud and Tifa's life.
right. And it's evidently
Mhm.
clear too, with traces of two paths, that even Claudia doesn't really have good fond memories of her dad and her for that matter. The way that she kind of conceals Cloud returning, it's pretty evident she wasn't trying to reveal nothing to Tifa. I love the part where she's telling her don't go near that fence when she was getting ready to leave the fence and go toward the mountain. You almost kind of felt a certain animus in her tone and the way that she said that to Tifa, as if you already got my son in trouble once and you want to be reckless and go do it again. You know what I mean? It
Mhm.
almost had that tone
Well,
the way she said,
because here's the
Don't you go
thing,
near that
Tifa does
fence."
go on to do that anyway, and Cloud nearly dies himself.
Right,
Mhm. I think it shows Cloud has a lot of emotional intelligence that's deep inside of him. I always see it, obviously, because of
Mm-hmm.
the persona. But he even comforts her in Rebirth when she's having her flashback memories of him, even though he has that past with Tifa's father. And he still tries to comfort her. He's like, "Are you okay?" You know.
Yeah, I think at the
Mhm.
end of the day, Cloud is a very compassionate character, and he's willing to put his own ego aside, and just like he'll let her talk about
Mhm.
Brian and her friends, but at the same
Yeah.
time, it's still awkward for him because as we do see in
You
Tracy's
don't want to
two
talk
half,
about it.
yeah, he does tend to like tune it out a little bit for his own emotional well being.
Cloud is not a cold character. He never
Mm-mm.
was. He
Mm-hmm.
puts
Mhm.
that on to shield who he really
Yep.
is because
Exactly.
he doesn't think anybody values him. He doesn't think
Mhm.
anybody appreciates him. So he shields it in a way to protect himself. But he
Mhm.
is, in my opinion, and the only person that compares to him that I could put ahead of him would be Aerith. He is the most compassionate. He is the most caring. He is the most generous. He is the most kind. I could run down a list if you think about
Mhm.
all of the generous and caring kind things he does throughout Remake just on a whim. I mean, think about it. He looks after Jesse the first time Jesse falls when they're bombing reactor number one. He stays behind to help her get her out of there. Then when they go to, then of course he helps Tifa, in chapter 3 when they're going around, you know, doing all the collecting all of the collecting payments for the water filters and things like that.
Mhm.
Then he goes and he helps Jessie, on her mission. And then during the mission, when Wedge gets bit by one of those dogs, he actually escorts Wedge home and tells Wedge, "Sorry about your ass." You know what I'm saying? I mean, just think about that for a second. What makes? I
Mhm.
mean, just out of the blue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
then of course he when Jesse bruises her ankle or twists her ankle, he picks her up. You know what I'm saying? And he's the first one to it. Not Barrett, not Biggs or Wedge. No, he reaches over, picks her up, and carries her into seventh heaven. Okay. And then the compassion that he shows to Biggs just before Biggs dies, they share a moment, together. Are you going to be okay? That sort of thing. And then the way that he shows compassion, of course, to Jesse before Jesse dies, the respect that he shows Elmira, even though Elmira clearly does not like him,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
but he shows respect and courtesy to Elmira. Even to the point to where he wanted to say something back, which he's clearly being disrespectful to him. You know, but he
Mhm.
doesn't say anything. He tempers himself. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Time and time again, you see these moments of generosity and caring that he shows, and that's him being him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's
And
what I'm gonna say. Yeah.
right, that's him being Cloud. It's in his nature to be that. Even in the way that even though Yuffie annoys him at times, he's generous to her like a big brother would be to a little sister. So and he
Mhm.
puts up with her like a big brother to a little sister. So he's got, like I said, a personality about himself that is probably one of the most caring, kind, and generous people within that game, aside from Aerith, and it's overlooked because of the cold way that he carries himself in an attempt to shield himself from this desire to be needed, this desire to be wanted and appreciated. I love that moment when Jesse says she needs him for the mission, and as he's getting ready to leave, he looks up and he's like, "It's just a job, right?" He's trying
Mhm.
to convince himself that he took the job because it's just a job. No, you actually appreciated the fact that she said to you she needed you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that meant something to him. Even though yes, she was paying him for it, the fact that she said she needed him meant something to him. And Ojima pointed this out very clearly. He has a strong desire and need to be wanted. He wants to be around people deep down. And that
Mhm.
was the problem in his childhood. Nobody wanted him. Nobody wanted to be around. And I can understand that. I can understand that. I'm pretty sure every last one of us can relate to that. Even if you've never had really that problem of not being in those circles, you know, at some point in time you felt what it was like to want to be included, and
Mm-hmm.
even if you eventually did become included, you knew what it felt like beforehand to see the group, doing this or that, and you think to yourself, "Boy, it'd be nice if I could be a part of that group." You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mhm.
So that's what he's gone through. And one of the things that we all have to keep in mind, I think we overlook, these things are really still fresh in his mind and heart, because he's only really, in terms of his development, he's really only 16 years old, really. So a lot of these issues are really still fresh. Now they're buried because of his false persona, but a lot of these issues are fresh because he'd only been out of it for a couple of years before he ended up going into cryostasis for 4 years. You know what I'm saying? So none of those issues ever got dealt with. So these are things he still carries very much in his mind. That's why when Tifa is talking about the way that she's talking, he cringes up because it's all still fresh to him how he was treated. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And I don't know what life you lived. Okay, so maybe those things are 7 years old to you. They're not 7 years old to me. To me, it's like yesterday. You know what I'm saying? To
Mhm.
me, it's like yesterday when I went to Nibelheim and I was ashamed to be seen because I didn't want to be a failure and have everybody that already hated me to begin with laughing at the fact that I
Mhm.
didn't become a soldier. You know,
And
so
may I add something?
sure,
Yeah. This reminded me of the scenes in Junon, the ceremony uh, where he was promoted, technically.
yes,
He loved it. That's
yes,
all he wanted, no?
Mhm.
And
yeah,
in the Gold Saucer, when he won or not against Dio, Dio, and the audience applauded. And yeah, the winner is Cloud. Oh, cool! He loved it so much.
right,
He likes to be in the center sometimes. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. He
he just
wants to,
wants to be accepted.
right. He does, and that's I think what made chapter 14 um of when they were going around uh, wall market, trying to find a way to get up the plate. That to me is what made that scene so special because by then he'd made a name for himself around Sector 5 and Wall Market. Everybody knew him. Everybody loved him
Yeah.
from the Coliseum to the kids in Sector 5. He had Aerith open her world up to him and
Mhm.
allowed and made a way for people to see what he really is and be able to appreciate what he really is, to the point that as he's showing them around Sector 5 and around Walmart, everybody's waving him. Everybody's saying hello. Everybody knows who he is. And it's
Mhm.
like Tifa's seeing a side of him that she'd never seen before. People
Right.
smiling at him and appreciating him and thanking him, you know what I'm saying? And she's like, what?
Right.
She never saw any of that before.
Mhm.
And the way the kids love him in the Leaf House,
Yep,
he's embarrassed. He plays it off. It came to me like that. But he wasn't really accustomed to people liking him for what he was, for what he did.
right,
It's so
right,
awesome. I love it.
Mhm.
right. I
Yeah,
mean,
you love to see that.
Aerith
Cloud. You love
brought
to see
him,
him being accepted.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah. He gained a family in a way
Mhm.
through his relationship with Aerith that gave
Totally.
him something that he's wanted his entire
Yeah.
life. And it even has allowed him to be more vocal about what it is that he never got when he was with Tifa because of what he gained being with Aerith. And I feel
Mhm.
like he may not even have ever opened up about any of those things if he hadn't gained what he gained from being around Aerith and having that world opened up to him in that particular way. And so he was able to be more vocal to Tifa about, no, honestly, yeah, it was never like that. Yes, what you thought, but I was never happy about that. I was miserable about those things.
Mhm.
So it just, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, Cloud and Tifa had very opposite experiences growing up. He was the town outcast. He was the pariah. He was treated like the worst person. Like they would call him a menace to society. Whereas Tifa, she was the town darling. Despite them having
Mhm.
gone through very similar circumstances where they both didn't have one parent, right? Um, like the town gathered around Tifa and stepped up to the plate when Thea passed away, whereas
Hmm.
Cloud was basically born without a father, and
I know.
no one helped Claudia to raise him,
Right.
and
No
that's
one.
sad,
Mhm.
you know.
Not a- and they didn't just not help. They absolutely shunned him and her
Yeah,
to
they
the
made
point that his
Claudia's
whole
job of raising
circle.
him 10 times as hard.
I know exactly. It made her exact. Honestly, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I have a hard time talking about it because whenever I think about it and I start talking about it, it kind of incenses me to the point I almost get a little choked up because I think about what she probably went through to make his world as happy as possible, living in
Mhm.
a village where nobody wants you there,
Yeah,
and
and
Yeah.
knowing
that's
that
such a
that's all
normal
she had.
childhood experience, and I think in a way that is also very similar to Aerith. But he didn't
Right?
really get to
Yeah.
play. You know, he didn't have any
No, he didn't.
friends. He was isolated, I guess, to his own house or to his backyard. I don't know what the exact experience was, but especially after the time of the Mount Nebel incident, it
Yeah.
got 10 times worse.
Yep. Yep. It
And
Yeah,
it
did.
was all
definitely.
predicated on a misunderstanding, something that he didn't even do. That he was ultimately probably the reason Tifa survived that entire event.
Mhm.
Think about the scene in Rebirth where they show Ifalna, talking to her daughter, and let's go on an adventure together, and she's making all the stuff of the mural appear on the train. And then I think about, Claudia didn't have the magic, but I can imagine that she did similar things with Cloud. Let's do this, let's do that together to try to make his world as pleasant as possible, knowing that they were alone.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Yeah.
just made it that much more hard when he lost her because that was his world. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Yeah.
And in the same way for Aerith, when Aerith lost her mother, that was her entire world. She had no world outside of her mom. They were trapped where they were. They were just now getting the little bit of glimpses, a taste of freedom, and then just like that, she lost her mom. So, it makes me think about what we've often talked about. You've written the fan fictions of what these two would have been like had they met each other, as little kids, how they probably would have been inseparable as little kids
Definitely.
because they would have been each other's world because they're so relatable in so many ways, and that's why when I look at you look at Ever Crisis, you look at Remake, you look at OG. That's the reason why it's hard for me to. Well, I understand, but it's just I don't accept the fact that Clodies can't see this, that they can't see that it is such a well written story, depicting a young boy that had nothing, that you know just didn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Just didn't matter, and is beset on a journey because everything is taken from him. But then is found again by the most unlikely character and is given something. When you put it into perspective, it makes it actually much more heartbreaking going through that scene when she dies in OG because he was finally just getting something back after having
Mhm.
had everything taken from him. And
Mm-hmm.
Aerith was becoming his new world. Okay. After having had his world ripped away from him once before, with his life having been destroyed, his town village having been destroyed, his mother having been killed, and the fact that he lived most of his life being isolated to finally be able to be what he says in Ever Crisis, to be this person that he never thought existed with her, and then she's up and just taken like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That would probably kill most people to
Yeah.
love somebody like that and then have them ripped away. I've seen old couples, that have been together for 40, 50 years and one of them dies and usually not too long afterward does the other one
Yeah.
go
It
because they're
just reminded me of this. Yeah. I
Mhm.
just thought of the exact same thing. Yeah. It's
Yep.
a broken heart syndrome, as I heard.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I see with those two, that are they are really one and the same. Cloud, they're
Mhm.
two sides of the same. They're two different sides of the same coin.
Yeah,
Coin,
both have
and
experienced, I think, the worst humanity has to
yep.
offer, but in the face of adversity, they are actually very, very strong separately, but also together, and that they still care about people
Hmm.
despite everything that
Mhm.
people have shown them.
Absolutely. And that's what's really amazing more than any of it is that in spite of that, yes, Cloud is cold to shield himself, but deep down he doesn't actually hate anyone. You know what I'm saying? He loves actually
Mhm.
everyone. And that's the thing that's actually really amazing is that in spite of all he's been through and everything that's been taken from him, he still loves everyone. And the
Mm-hmm.
same thing with her. She considers her life a curse because of the pain and the suffering she's been through, but yet she still dares to love. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
That's amazing. That's insane. That's almost insane. It's let me stop. I gotta stop, okay? Because then I'm gonna be taking tissue out and stuff like that. But that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? That in spite of that, she doesn't hate the world. She actually still loves the world.
Yeah, she still wants
And
Yeah.
to
Cloud,
save Cloud and the world. I mean,
yep.
those were her
What
words. And
that's what makes it even more
she still
amazing
has
is
so
that
much love to give to even strangers. You know what I mean? Like she
I
has not
know,
Yeah.
closed herself off. And even Cloud, like he'll put on a front, but he has not closed himself off. Like in
no,
one version of Rebirth, he does go off with these three complete strangers that he doesn't know to try to spend time with them.
yep,
And
Mhm.
and does he have fun? I don't know, but he still tried. He does open an ear to
Mhm.
Vincent's problems. Um, and yeah, like he's just a very caring person in general. I mean, he brought in Denzel from, off the street, right? And he,
right,
he
Yeah.
does love Marlene. He does go to save her by himself, despite being
right,
terminally ill, and who knows, how that's getting in the way of his physical strength.
And
right,
knowing what place he needs to go, no?
Yeah, and
To
it's
the place he lost everything again.
yeah. So
right,
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just going back to the question that my husband asked in terms of um, Japanese RPGs and how the main characters or the protagonist tends to be blank slates. It's just I don't feel Cloud is that. I mean, definitely maybe in the first hour of the original game, I guess his personality gets developed more and more, but that's very much on purpose. Like
Mhm.
the narrative gets flipped is that he isn't a blank slate. Like he does hold in all of these feelings, and he has his own deep emotional sad history. And then going forward, it's still so tragic because then he loses the girl that he loves. You know, um,
right,
Kate Sith, or sorry, Ketchy, says it himself. That he lost
right,
what was most precious, and
right.
Mhm.
that's just a
Well, the
really
one
sad
thing
turn
about
of
Eastern
events.
It is. Well, the one thing about Eastern culture is that I think that they do very well is the way that they the way they layer a character. Meaning that yeah, you may not in the first initial part of the story get everything, and maybe it might look like it's a little flat, but what they do is that as the story progresses, they're peeling away the layers, and
Yeah,
every
the
layer that
layers
they
are like
peel away, you
onions.
discover something new. Exactly, and it
Mhm.
opens you up to something new, and the more that you go, like you said, it's like peeling onions. You get the tears get drawn out the deeper that you go. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Until the point you reach this moment where you finally get the full perspective of this character, and you now have connected with them in such a way that you feel their suffering. You've lived the life with them in spirit, you know what I'm saying? In your heart, you've lived it with them. And that's how I feel whenever I've played, Final Fantasy. I feel like I've lived that pain he's lived. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And when he gets to meet Aerith, I feel like I've lived the joy that he's lived with her. And then when he suffers losing her, I feel like I felt the pain. My heart was broken with him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
it's just like I don't think Clerics
Rebirth,
connect with Cloud because they're projecting on him, but rather because they connect with him.
right?
Yeah, right.
That's exactly what I'm saying. We connect with him, and the same thing with Aerith. I think we connect with Aerith. You know, it's not we're not projecting ourselves on him, and I think that's what Japanese culture does a good job of us of doing it in a way so where you connect with them, and then when you get to at the apex of the story, you're invested in a way that you're completely and totally connected. Now, like I said, I think that because in Western culture we're more direct, you kind of get the substance without peeling the layers. Like they got to throw it out there in front of you, and then you're spending the rest of the time digesting it all, even though they kind of already threw it at you. And so, and I can see, and in a lot of ways, that could kind of be tiresome because what happens is that if you get the whole amount, now you're having to digest it throughout the story when they already kind of gave you the bulk of it from the beginning, and now you're figuring out how to navigate it as you go. As where what they do is they give you a little bit at a time. They peel the layers back a little bit at a time, and they do it in such a way that's very, very poetic that kind of draws you in. I didn't see that coming. They do that a lot with anime too, as well.
Well, I
You
think
know, where
it's
they
just a
draw
good
Mhm.
in
you in.
general thing to keep in mind is that what you see is not necessarily what you get. Is that these characters are very
Exactly.
dynamic.
Right, they are, and that's the thing. You know, and every single one of them, to be honest with you, every single one of them are dynamic in their own way. I
Yeah,
think
it's
the
just like
only
I think
one that
you have
probably
Barrett, for instance, who is very blunt and brash at times, but deep down he is a father. He does
right,
take Cloud, Tifa, Aerith, and so on and so forth, like under his wings, and
yeah,
he is the type to be very parental in his advice, especially when you see the scene with Barrett and Cloud and Rebirth during the Skywheel thing,
right,
and he is giving Cloud this very fatherly, gentle advice, but it's also blunt in
right,
its own way in the tone that he's using.
right,
And with
Mhm.
when Aerith passes away in Rebirth and he says, "I'm gonna kill you" to Sephiroth, it is this very, very deep and emotional, I don't know how else to say it, but stab in the heart, right? And
right,
it made me cry because it was just like I don't want to see those characters sad.
right. I don't either.
Mhm.
I don't
And
either. I think the
yeah.
part that really got to me with Barrett, one of the parts that kind of always get to me is in remake after Aerith is taken, and he's talking to Marlene, and he's telling Marlene we got to go and find her, and then she kind of pauses because she's thinking about the vision, and says, "Yeah, you got to go and help her." And as he's walking out, he's putting on the sunglasses like he don't want anybody to see his eyes because they're
Yeah.
probably watery. He's trying his best to hold back tears. I just remember when I was watching that scene, I said to myself, you know what? I mean, especially being a dad, myself,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I completely get it. I
Mhm.
completely get it. And I was like, that's why I just, Barrett is just, he's one of those characters that maybe your first impression of him because of how brash he can be, you just gotta kind of just let yourself get through that and watch, because what you're going to find if you do that, if you allow yourself to do that, you see a guy that also is very gentle, very compassionate, you know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
he's got a lot of love inside. Yes, he's hot tempered, but he's really hot tempered because he's
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why I
he
can't
bears a
stand
lot
the
of
narrative
grief, you know what I'm saying,
they
of
keep
him, of
trying to
his own
erase
self.
Barrett from the fact that he is Marlene's father. And yes, adoptive father, but I think that's
Yeah,
valid
right.
no matter what. Like how dare you try to erase that fact? He is the one at the end of the day raising Marlene, but
Yeah,
it's
Mhm.
I
such a
hate that
core
too.
part of
I honestly
him,
hate that too.
you know?
And and if you read Tifa's Traces of Two Pasts, you actually understand how deep that father daughter relationship is, because you discover they have been, since the events of the Northern Coral, they have been kind of wandering for a few years by themselves.
Hmm.
And he's been just doing the best he can to take care of her. Remember when when Tifa finds him, his and Marlene's clothes are all tattered. You know what I'm saying? They have hard. They've got nothing. They got nothing to their name. And that's one of the things that make her feel compassionate for them is when she sees little Marlene and she's just in these torn up clothes, and whatnot. They've been through some significant hardship on their travels. You know what I mean? So can you imagine what that's like? You know what I'm saying? He's riddled with guilt. He's lost his best friend. He's lost his wife. The town,
Yeah, he
has
even
the what's
in
left.
Rebirth he even defends the clones from the people who were like throwing like trash at them on the beach, and he's just like, get
Right,
away from them, you know. And I
right,
just think that it just goes to show how wonderful Bear is, and in general, how all of the other characters, going back to Cloud and Aerith, it's just like get to know them.
right,
Just get to know
Mhm.
them.
exactly,
Stop projecting your bullshit onto them.
right. Or trying to dismiss him out of the picture because we all know what that's for. This is all to
It's for
their little
shipping.
sick
It's for
narrative.
shipping. Yes.
Well, of course, it's just for shipping purposes
Yeah.
that they would want to, push him out of the picture just for the little sick, twisted fantasy of having. Like, why would you even want that? Like, what?
And now
I
they hate
mean, that's like,
Marlene. Now they hate Marlene because she clearly says that Aerith has feelings for Cloud.
I know, not exactly. I was floored when I saw that tweet. I was like, wow,
Or
you're
that
turning.
Marlene is Genova,
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me?
or that Marlene is Genova.
Yeah. I
Then
Yeah,
people
I don't know if they're being
said this.
serious or trolling with that, but it's stupid.
I don't know,
yeah,
but it was funny.
they're trolling. They know they're trolling. They know Marlene is Marlene, and they're trolling
Mhm.
because they don't like the fact that she turned to the camera and spoke directly to the players and to everybody who is in the fandom. Aerith is in love with Cloud. Just so you know, if
Mhm.
you're confused about this, I'm telling you right now, she likes him a lot.
Mm.
Mhm.
And they just are they're sick about it, and there's nothing they can do. And the sad part is there's nothing they can do with it. They can't twist it. They can't. There isn't even a single mental gymnastic that they can try to pull to try to somehow explain away what she said. There's nothing they can do with it. That's why they've resorted to just hating her or trying to call her Genova, because they
Yeah,
don't have any other answer to explain that. They can't. They just can't.
it's why it's so funny.
It's sad. That whole fandom is quite pathetic. Well, maybe not the whole fandom. I'm sure there are good people who hide from the
Yeah,
toxic ones, and that's totally fine. And maybe they have their own reasons and rationale how they argue against it. But from what I've seen, most of it is absurd.
Yeah.
Because I think there is probably a portion of the Cloti fandom that, well, just because Aerith likes Cloud doesn't mean that it's mutual, as far as that moment goes. But I'm not gonna play devil's advocate. I'm just saying they're they're a weird bunch.
Right.
Mhm.
So yeah, are there any other topics? Cause I gotta go soon, but I can stick around and record just a little while longer.
Um, what's the next topic that I think the next time we come together, what are we going to be
Oh, you
discussing?
know what?
I
I
think
haven't
maybe
thought
that'd
of
be
a
something
question
interesting.
for the next podcast, but is there anything that you want to ask today that we could save for next time to start us off?
That's a good question. Let me think. Give me a second here. um,
Maybe what's the your favorite outfit of from not Advent Children? I mean, either in general with
my favorite what now?
all outfits or in Ever Crisis.
Oh,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
Right.
okay,
Just your favorite outfits.
okay.
My favorite ever crisis outfit. Okay, I think I'll save that
That's the
if we're
question
gonna.
for
Yeah,
next week,
If
Jason.
right, no, I'm not gonna. No, I wasn't gonna answer. I was just gonna say that. I was like, if I'm gonna answer, I'll give that to for next week. But I do have one.
yeah. But as
Mhm.
far as next topic, I don't know. That's something we'll have to discuss more because I know there eventually we'll have to start going back for disc one. But is there anything you guys want to suggest for next time? I mean, there is the possibility that we will be
Um,
reacting to also the event coming up. I guess so. We can leave the
yeah, I
door
think
open
that would
for
probably
that.
be
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Leave
yeah,
the
that
door
was
open because there's going to be a lot of reaction that's going to be coming from that. So I'm pretty sure we're going to have a lot to say about that. So
uh,
that would be a good
Yeah.
topic.
I know Val will
yeah,
probably
no,
also want to talk a lot about the Clo tea. So there's also that. I'm sure we'll be revisiting a lot of these tweets. But as far as like a main
yeah.
topic, I guess we'll just leave it up in the air for right now.
Uh, I was thinking in addition to the event, maybe also touch on the chapters of First Soldier episode 2 that dropped. The first two.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Sure. I think.
Because I mean, we're talking.
Oh, sorry. Go
Because
ahead.
I mean, we're talking about. Because I mean, we're talking about Ever Crisis already.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I guess we'll just talk about whatever we
Yeah.
want to talk about. So yeah,
We'll do that.
you have been with us here at our place, our spot podcast. Thank you guys for joining me. I hope Val is able to come next time, and anyone who dropped out or wasn't here, we miss you guys. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks for tuning in.
Yeah,
All
bye
right. So glad
bye.
to have been here. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.